I had worked nights for so long that the dark felt normal. Most people hate it. They say the dark makes everything feel wrong, makes the mind wander, makes shadows look alive. For me, the dark felt honest. Nothing hid in daylight. But at night, everything showed its true shape. I'd been sheriff in Claymore County for 23 years. Same badge, same office, same desk with a dent in the corner from when I slammed my flashlight down after a bad call back in '09. I knew every road by heart, every dead-end street, every stretch of woods where people like to disappear. That night started like any other. Quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears until you notice your own breathing. It was just after 1:30 in the morning. The building smelled like old coffee and dust and that faint metallic scent that never really leaves police stations. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, one of them flickering like it had been dying for years. Dispatch sat behind a glass wall, empty except for Donna. She'd been there almost as long as I had. Gray hair pulled back tight, reading glasses hanging off a chain. She gave me a small nod when I walked in. "Slow night," she said. "Best kind." I replied. I poured myself a cup of coffee that tasted burned no matter how fresh the pot was. Sat down at my desk. Opened the daily log. Nothing big so far. A barking dog complaint. A drunk guy sleeping in his truck behind the hardware store. A loose cow that turned out to be a plastic lawn decoration. Normal stuff. The kind of calls you almost feel guilty complaining about. I leaned back in my chair and let it creak. Closed my eyes for a second. That's when the phone rang. Line 2, the old black desk phone, the one we kept hooked into the backup system. Most calls came through the newer digital console. Line 2 was for overflow and emergencies when the main system glitched. It almost never rang. The sound cut straight through the quiet. Not loud, just sharp. I opened my eyes and stared at it. Donna looked up from her screen. "Line 2, she said. I shrugged. "Guess so." I picked up the receiver. "Claymore County Sheriff's Office." I said, "This is Sheriff Hale." At first, I thought the line was dead. No voice. No background noise. Just nothing. Then I heard it. A soft crackle, like wind moving through dry leaves. Then a faint hiss. Static, not the clean kind. The broken kind, like an old radio stuck between stations. I waited. "Hello?" I said. The static thickened. Then, underneath it, something else. A sound so low I almost missed it. Breathing. Slow. Shallow. Like someone trying not to be heard. My fingers tightened around the receiver. "Sir or ma'am, can you speak up?" The breathing stopped. The static pulsed. Then a whisper slid through. So faint it felt more like a thought than a sound. "H, ilk, help." That's what it sounded like. I glanced toward Donna. She was watching me now. "Where are you calling from?" I asked. Static. A thin whine. Then another whisper. "Lost." The words stretched out. "Warped." "Lost where?" I asked. My voice stayed calm. Training kicks in whether you want it to or not. Static surged louder. For a moment, I thought the line had dropped. Then the whisper came back. "Don't see?" I sat forward in my chair. "Don't see what?" "Nothing. Just breathing again. Slow. Wet, like lungs struggling." I felt a small prickle at the base of my neck. Not fear. Not yet. More like unease. Calls coming strange all the time. People high. People drunk. People half asleep. But something about this felt wrong. Not dramatic wrong. Quiet wrong. The kind that sinks in slow. "Can you tell me your name?" I asked. Static popped. Then very softly. "Hale." I froze. "My last name." I swallowed. "That's my name," I said. "What's yours?" No answer. Just breathing. Then, "No, you." A thin bead of sweat rolled down my temple. "Who is this?" I asked. Static roared for half a second, then dropped low again. The whisper came back closer. Not louder. Closer. Like the caller had leaned toward the phone. "You always work nights." My stomach tightened. Donna stood up slowly from her chair. She mouthed, "What's going on?" I shook my head. "Listen," I said into the receiver. "If you need help, I need your location. breathing, static, then road. What road? A long pause. So long I thought the line had gone dead. Then dark road. That didn't narrow it down much. We have a lot of dark roads, I said. Do you see any signs? Any mile markers? Houses. The breathing hitched, like a quiet sob. Trees. I closed my eyes for a moment. Are you hurt? I asked. Static cracked. Don't feel? That word stuck with me. Not can't feel. Not hurts. Just don't feel. Are you alone? I asked. The breathing sped up, then stopped. The silence stretched. Too long. Hello, I said. For a second, I thought the call had dropped. Then the whisper returned. Not anymore. A cold ripple slid through my chest. Who's with you? I asked. No answer. Just static. Low. Thick. Like something clogging the line. I leaned closer to the receiver. Listen to me, I said. We're going to help you. I just need something. Anything that tells me where you are. The breathing came back. Slow. Heavy. Then, line to... I felt my heart skip. That's the line you're calling on, I said. Always line to... My mouth felt dry. How do you know that? I asked. The whisper didn't answer. Instead, something else slipped through the static. A sound. Faint. Distant. A low hum. Not a voice. Not quite a tone. Almost like an engine idling far away. Or maybe wind moving through a hollow space. Are you near a vehicle? I asked. The hum faded. Breathing. Then, you hear? Hear what? I asked. Static surged. Then dropped to almost nothing. The whisper came back so faint I had to press the receiver harder against my ear. Still ringing, a chill crawled up my arms. Stay with me, I said. Don't hang up. The breathing changed. It grew uneven, shaky, like the caller was scared. Can't hang up? What do you mean? I asked. The whisper stretched thin. Never did. My pulse hammered in my ears. Never did what? I asked. No answer. The breathing slowed again. Too slow. Too steady. Like someone pretending to breathe. Donna, I said quietly, covering the receiver. Try to trace the call. She nodded fast and started typing. I brought the phone back to my ear. Listen, I said. Help is coming. You're not alone. Static hissed. Then, you say that? I say that to everyone. I replied. A pause. You said it before? My stomach twisted. Before when? I asked. The whisper grew weaker. Other nights. The line crackled violently. For a split second, I heard something else. Not breathing. Not static. A soft, distant echo of a voice. My own voice. Tinny, like it was coming from a speaker far away. You're not alone. The same words I had just said. I pulled the receiver away from my ear and stared at it. Donna looked pale. She mouthed, no signal, no trace. It's not showing anywhere. I lifted the receiver again. Who are you? I asked. The whisper barely existed now. You know... I don't, I said. Static swelled. Then, clear as day through the noise. Me? The breathing stopped. The line went dead. I held the receiver to my ear for a long time. Nothing. Just silence. I slowly placed the phone back on the cradle. Donna didn't speak. Neither did I. A minute later, the phone rang again. Line 2. I stared at it. Didn't move. Neither did Donna. The ringing kept going. Soft, steady, patient, like it knew I would eventually answer. I didn't answer line 2 right away. I just stared at it. The ring was steady, calm, like it had all the time in the world. Donna looked at me. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Her hands hovered over her keyboard. But she wasn't typing anymore. The sound filled the room. Not loud, not urgent. Just there. I'd taken thousands of calls in my career. Screaming calls, crying calls, angry calls. Calls where someone had just watched another human being die. None of those ever made me hesitate. This one did. Because I already knew something about the voice on the other end. It knew me. I reached out and picked up the receiver. Claymore County Sheriff's Office. I said, Sheriff Hale speaking. Static answered, thicker than before, heavier, like the line was clogged with something wet. Then the breathing came back. Slow, measured, almost careful. My stomach clenched. Hello, I said. A pause. Then the whisper slid through. You didn't leave? I'm still here. I said, who is this? Static popped. You never leave? I closed my eyes for a second. Tell me your name. I said. The breathing shifted. Don't remember? You don't remember? I asked. Lost it. Lost it where? The whisper didn't answer. Instead, you live on Miller Road. My eyes snapped open. Donna stiffened across the room. That was my address. Not public. Not something you find in a phone book. I didn't say anything right away. Sometimes people fish. They throw out guesses. But this didn't feel like guessing. How do you know that? I asked. Static hissed. White House. Green mailbox. I swallowed. Donna Mao, that's right? I nodded slowly. Who told you that? I asked. The breathing deepened. You did? I've never talked to you before, I said. Static surged, then dropped low again. Yes, you did. My fingers tightened around the receiver. When? I asked. A long pause. The kind that makes your skin crawl. Then, after the creak, my heart skipped. I hadn't told many people about that. Years back, we'd pulled a teenager out of Millstone Creek. Car went off the bridge during a storm. Kid didn't make it. I was first on scene. I'd sat on the bank afterward longer than I should have, just staring at the water. How do you know about that? I asked. Static crackled sharply. You cried. My throat went tight. I hadn't cried in front of anyone. Not that night. Not ever. I had gone home, sat in my truck in the driveway, hands on the steering wheel, head down, alone. Donna was pale now. Her eyes were glossy. Trace again. I whispered. She shook her head. Nothing. It's like it's not coming from anywhere. I turned back to the phone. You're lying, I said, though I didn't believe it. The whisper answered. You smell like river and rust. That did it. I felt something cold slide into my chest. Not fear. Not exactly. More like realization. Whoever this was, they weren't guessing. They weren't bluffing. They were pulling memories. Private ones. Ones I'd never said out loud. You've been watching me. I said. Static. Breathing. Then, you watch me. I don't know you, I said. You did? My mouth felt dry. When? I asked. Another long pause. Before, I was lost. What do you mean lost? I asked. The whisper wavered. You used to have a name. What was it? I asked. Static flared. Then, you wrote? My heart thudded hard. I write a lot of names. I said. That doesn't mean anything. Black, ink, top of the page. I saw it in my mind. The incident report forms. Name at the top. Date, time, location, victim, suspect, missing, deceased. You were in a report? I asked. Static whispered. Missing? A chill crept up my spine. How long ago? I asked. The breathing grew uneven. Long time. Years. I pressed. A pause. More than 10. My stomach twisted. I've worked hundreds of missing person cases. Most never get solved. Some you forget. Some stick with you. Faces that show up in dreams. Names you remember for no clear reason. Were you a kid? I asked. Static. Yes. Boy or girl? I asked. Another pause. Doesn't matter. It matters to me, I said. The whisper softened. You said, boy. I felt dizzy. Where did I say that? I asked. In the woods. My breathing slowed. There was a search in Blackwood Forest. I said quietly, 10 years ago. A boy went missing while camping with his dad. Static hissed. Cold. Dark. You had a flashlight. My hands started to shake. I remember that search. Rain. Mud. Dogs barking. Volunteers calling a name into the trees. We never found him. You're saying you're that boy? I asked. The breathing stuttered. Don't know anymore. You'd be grown now, I said, if you were alive. Static crackled. Don't feel alive? My stomach clenched. Where are you right now? I asked. On the road. What road? I asked. You drive every night. I thought of County Road 6, the long stretch past the woods, the one I used for patrol when things were slow. You're lying, I said. The whisper answered. You slowed down at the bend. I did. There was a sharp curve where deer like to cross. How do you know that? I asked. You always look for me. My breath caught. I don't, I said. You don't remember? Static surged. Then, faintly, behind the whisper, I heard something else. A soft echo, like another voice trying to speak. Layered on the first. Sheriff, it sounded younger. Thin, weak. My skin prickled. Who else is there? I asked. The breathing grew ragged. Others, like me? How many? I asked. Static. Lost. My heart pounded. You're saying there are more people like you? I asked. Yes. Where? I asked. The whisper stretched thin. Between what? I asked. The line crackled. Calls. A heavy silence settled over the room. Listen to me, I said. If you're in danger, we can help you. I need you to tell me exactly where you are. The breathing slowed. You can't? Why not? I asked. The whisper grew faint. And then a lump formed in my throat. I tried. I said. Static hissed. You left? I leave, I said. The search ended. We had no more leads. You went home. I had. I remembered driving away that last night. The woods disappearing in my rear-view mirror. You were already gone, I said. The whisper lingered. So are you? A cold wave rolled through me. What do you mean? I asked. The breathing faded. Static dropped lower. Then very softly, you just don't know it. The line went silent. I stared at the receiver. Donna was crying. I hadn't noticed until I saw her wipe her face. Neither of us spoke. A few seconds passed. Then line 2 rang again. Slow, steady, patient. I didn't pick it up. I don't know how long it rang. All I know is that ever since that night, I drive County Road 6 a little slower. And sometimes when I pass the bend near the woods, my radio crackles. And buried under the static, I swear I hear someone whisper my name. The phone stopped ringing. That was the worst part. Not the silence itself, but the way the silence felt wrong. Like something had unfinished business. Donna went home early that morning. I told her to take the rest of the shift off. She didn't argue. She just nodded, grabbed her purse, and left without looking back. I stayed. I don't know why. Maybe habit. Maybe fear of being alone somewhere else. The building felt different after that call. Same walls, same desks, same buzzing lights, but it felt thinner, like the space between things had stretched. I kept catching myself staring at line 2. It didn't ring again. Not that night, not the next, not for a week. But I kept hearing anyway. Not with my ears, with my mind. A soft ring, dull, steady. Sometimes I'd be writing a report and feel a twitch in my hand, like I needed to reach the receiver. Sometimes I'd wake up at home with my heart racing. Sure, I'd heard it ringing in my bedroom, but my phone would be sitting silent on the nightstand. I told myself it was stress, lack of sleep, getting older. Those excuses worked for a while, until I started hearing more than the ring. The whisper came next. Not words at first, just breath, a soft rush of air inside my head, like someone standing too close behind me. I'd be brushing my teeth and pause, foam dripping from my mouth, because I could swear someone had exhaled right next to my ear. Nothing would be there. I'd tell myself I imagined it. Then the words started, not full sentences, just fragments. Sheriff, hell, sometimes I'd hear it while driving, sometimes while sitting at my desk. Once, I heard it in the middle of a conversation with a deputy. He was telling me about a broken fence. I nodded like I was listening, but underneath his voice, I heard, "You left." I didn't tell anyone. What would I even say? That I was hearing voices? that a phone call had crawled into my head and made a nest. I kept working, kept doing patrols, kept answering calls. Life didn't slow down just because something inside me had cracked, but I started changing. Small things at first. I avoided County Road 6. I took longer routes, found excuses, construction, checking another area, anything. When I did have to drive past the woods, I kept my eyes straight ahead, didn't look at the trees, didn't look at the bend, because I knew if I did, I would see something. Not with my eyes, with my memory, a flashlight beam, rain on leaves, a small boot half buried in mud, things my mind had invented, or maybe things it hadn't. The whisper grew clearer over time, not louder, just sharper, like it was learning how to speak. One night, about 2 weeks after the first call, I was sitting alone in my living room, TV on, volume low. I wasn't really watching, just letting noise fill the space. I heard it, not in my head, not exactly. From the kitchen, a soft crackle, like radio static. I muted the TV. The sound didn't stop. It drifted, slow, unsteady, like it was moving through the house. My heart pounded. I stood up. The static faded. Silence took its place. I walked through the kitchen. Nothing. Checked the hallway. Bathroom. Bedroom. All empty. I went back to the couch. Sat down. Tried to breathe. That's when I heard the ring. Not loud. Not sharp. Just a gentle, steady tone. Inside my skull. I pressed my hands over my ears. It didn't change. I whispered, "Stop." The ring faded. The breathing replaced it. Slow. Wet. Close. "You hear me?" I squeezed my eyes shut. "I hear you," I said. I don't know why I said it. Maybe I thought answering would make it go away. It didn't. Good. My mouth went dry. "What do you want?" I asked. A long pause. Same as before. "Help," I said. The whisper lingered. "Don't know." I swallowed. "You said I left you." I said, "Tell me what you want me to do now." The breathing slowed. "Stay." "Stay where?" I asked. "With me." A chill rolled through me. "I can't," I said. The whisper didn't argue. It didn't beg. It just said, "You already are." The static faded. I sat there for a long time. Didn't move. Didn't turn the TV back on. Didn't sleep. After that, it got harder to tell where the sounds were coming from. Sometimes they felt inside. Sometimes they felt outside. Once, I thought I heard the whisper coming from my patrol radio. I turned it off. The whisper kept going. Another time, I heard it coming from my bathroom sink while water was running. I shut off the faucet. It didn't stop. The worst part wasn't the voice. It was the memories. Things I hadn't thought about in years started surfacing. Calls I barely remembered. Faces with no names. Names with no faces. A woman who walked into the woods and never came back. An old man found dead in a field with no signs of injury. A hitchhiker who vanished between 1 mile marker and the next. The whisper would slide into those memories, like it had been there all along. "You wrote us. You closed the file. You went home." I started wondering how many people I'd failed. Not in big, obvious ways, but small ones. The kind you don't notice until it's too late. The kind that pile up quietly. I stopped sleeping more than a couple hours at a time. When I did sleep, I dreamed of phones. Rows and rows of them. All ringing. No cords. No walls. Just endless darkness and ringing. I'd wake up sweating. Heart racing. The ring still echoing. One night, about a month after the first call, I was sitting at my desk at the station. Late. Everyone else gone. Paperwork stacked in front of me. I heard it. Not in my head. Not in the building. From the desk. Line 2. Not ringing. Breathing. I stared at the phone. It wasn't moving. No lights. No sound. But I heard it anyway. Slow. Measured. I stood up. Backed away. I didn't answer. I said out loud. The whisper answered. "You always do." "I'm not answering," I said. "You don't have to." The breathing grew closer. Not louder. Closer. We already talk. My knees felt weak. "What are you?" I asked. The whisper paused. "Like you." "I'm not lost." I said. Another pause. Not yet. A cold emptiness spread through my chest. I don't want this, I said. The whisper softened. None of us did. The breathing faded. The room went silent. I sat back down, hands shaking. That was the night I realized something. The call never really ended. It didn't need a phone line. It didn't need wires. It didn't need line 2. It just needed me. I don't know what happens to people like The Voice. I don't know where they go, between places, between moments, between calls. But I know this. Every night, when the world gets quiet enough, I hear it. Not always words. Sometimes just static. Sometimes just breathing. Sometimes nothing I can explain. And every once in a while, buried under it all, I hear a second voice. Thin, distant, younger, calling my name. And I wonder how long it will be before I stop hearing it as a voice and start hearing it as my own. I was 3 hours into my shift when I saw her. That stretch of County Road 17 runs through nothing but trees and fields. No houses, no gas stations, no streetlights, just pavement cutting through darkness. I had driven it 1,000 times. That night felt no different at first. Windows cracked, radio low, engine humming steady. The kind of night where your thoughts wander because nothing happens. I was coming around a long, shallow curve when my headlights caught something pale in the road. At first, I thought it was a deer. Then I slowed. The shape didn't move. I eased off the gas. Another second passed before my brain accepted what I was seeing. A person standing in the middle of the road. Not walking, not waving, just standing there. I slowed to a crawl. My headlights washed over her. She was a woman, barefoot, wearing a thin, light-colored dress that hung loose on her frame. No jacket, no bag, no phone in her hands. She stood facing my cruiser, arms hanging at her sides, head slightly tilted down, like she was staring at the pavement in front of her. My first thought was drunk. My second was sleepwalker. My third was that something was very wrong. People don't stand in the middle of a dark rural road at 2 in the morning unless something bad happened. I stopped about 15 feet away and put the cruiser in park. Turned on my hazard lights. Ma'am, I said into the open window. You okay? She didn't react. Didn't look up. Didn't flinch. I stepped out. The night air felt heavy. No wind. No insects. Just quiet. My boots crunched softly on gravel. As I took a few steps toward her. Ma'am, I said again. Nothing. I could see her better now. She looked young, early 20s maybe. Dark hair hanging loose around her face. Skin pale, not sick pale. More like she hadn't seen sunlight in a long time. Did you need help? I asked. No answer. I kept my voice calm. Are you hurt? Nothing. I stopped a few feet away, close enough to see her eyes. They were open, staring straight ahead. Not at me, not at the car, just forward, like she was looking at something far away. Can you tell me your name? I asked. Silence. I glanced up and down the road. Nothing but darkness in both directions. No other cars. No lights. No movement. You shouldn't be out here, I said gently. It's not safe. She didn't move, didn't blink. I had a strange urge to step back. Not because she looked dangerous, but because she felt wrong, like a mannequin that had been placed in the road. I reached for my radio. Dispatch! I've got a female subject standing in the roadway on County Road 17 near mile marker 42. Not responsive. Can you run missing persons or recent calls? Static popped. Copy, dispatch said. Stand by. I looked back at the woman. Still nothing. Ma'am, I said, can you hear me? Her lips parted slightly. For half a second, I thought she was about to speak. Then they closed again. No sound came out. I took another small step closer. I'm Deputy Keller. I said, I'm here to help you. Her eyes shifted, just a little. They lifted from the pavement and locked onto mine. That was the first time I felt real fear. Not because of how she looked, but because of how empty her eyes were. Not blank, not glazed, empty, like nobody was home. Can you tell me what happened? I asked. She stared, didn't blink. Didn't breathe heavy. Didn't react. My radio crackled. Nothing matching in the area. Dispatch said. No recent calls. Want me to send a unit? Yeah, I said. Send one. I hesitated, then gently reached out and touched her arm. She was cold, not just cool from the night. Cold, like she'd been standing in a freezer. Ma'am, I said, you're freezing. Let's get you in the car, okay? She didn't resist. Didn't help either. When I guided her toward the cruiser, she moved like a sleepwalker. Slow, stiff, no weight shift, no hesitation. Just followed. I opened the passenger door. She stood there. I waited. Nothing. I lightly guided her inside and buckled her seatbelt. She didn't look at me. Didn't react to the belt clicking. I closed the door and walked around to the driver's side. Before getting in, I looked back down the road. Still empty. Too empty. I got in and turned the heater up. An officer's on the way, I said. We'll get you somewhere warm. No response. I pulled onto the shoulder and waited. The woman sat perfectly still, hands in her lap, head facing forward. I watched her from the corner of my eye. She never moved. Not once. No fidgeting. No adjusting. No signs of discomfort. Most people shift around at least a little. She didn't. I tried again. What's your name? Nothing. Do you remember how you got out here? Silence. You don't have to talk if you don't want to, I said. Just let me know if you're hurt. No reaction. I noticed something then. There were no marks on her feet. No dirt. No cuts. No scratches. Bare feet. On gravel and pavement. Not even a smudge. That didn't make sense. My stomach tightened. Another cruiser's headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. Relief washed over me. Deputy Morales pulled in behind me. He walked up to my window. Final like that? He asked. Yeah, I said. Won't talk. Barefoot. No injuries I can see. He glanced into the passenger seat. Frowned. She alive? He asked. Yeah, I said. I think. Morales opened the passenger door. Ma'am, he said. Can you hear me? Nothing. He waved a hand in front of her face. No blink. That's not normal, he said quietly. I know. Morales straightened. We should take her to the hospital. I nodded. He stepped back. I closed the door. Before I pulled away, I looked at her again. For the first time, she turned her head. Slowly. She looked at me, her mouth open. My heart jumped. Nothing came out. Then she leaned closer. So close I could feel cold air brush my cheek. Her lips moved. Barely. I heard it, not with my ears. Inside my head. Don't! I froze. Morales was standing outside. He didn't react. He didn't hear it. I stared at her. Her lips closed. She leaned back into the seat, staring forward again. What? I whispered. She didn't answer. Morales tapped the roof. You good? He asked. Yeah, I said automatically. I pulled onto the road. The woman sat silent beside me. The heater blasted. She never seemed to warm. Halfway to town, I realized something worse. The road behind us was empty. No headlights. Morales wasn't following. I checked my mirror again. Nothing. I grabbed the radio. Morales, you still back there? Static. No answer. My pulse spiked. I glanced at the woman. She was smiling. Not wide. Not happy. Just a small, slow curl of her lips. She still wasn't looking at me. She whispered again. Inside my head. Don't stop. And I knew, somehow, that I was no longer alone in my cruiser. Not really. I didn't stop the cruiser. Even when every instinct in my body screamed at me to, when she whispered, I felt something inside me lock up. Like if I acknowledged it, really acknowledged it, then whatever was happening would become real in a way I couldn't undo. So I drove, hands tight on the wheel, eyes fixed on the road. The woman sat beside me, quiet again, no smile, no movement, just still, like she hadn't leaned toward me at all, like nothing had happened. I told myself I imagined it, that my brain filled in something that wasn't there, but my skin still felt cold where her breath had touched me. I tried the radio again. Morales, you copy? Static. Thick. Not normal static. the kind that feels heavy in your ears. I tried dispatch. Dispatch, this is Keller. I lost visual on Morales. Can you confirm his location? A pause. Then, stand by. The woman turned her head slightly. Not toward me, toward the windshield. Her eyes followed the road like she knew where we were going. Dispatch. I said. Another pause. Morales is showing stationary near mile marker 42. Dispatch said. That was where I had found her. My stomach twisted. He was behind me. I said, he's not now. Copy, Dispatch said, attempting contact. I glanced at the woman. Her hands rested in her lap, perfectly still. I thought about pulling over, about opening the door, about running. But where would I run? Into the woods? Into the dark? And leave her alone in my cruiser? The idea felt wrong. Not dangerous wrong. Worse. Like I would be abandoning something fragile. Something that didn't belong anywhere. Keller, Dispatch said. Morales isn't responding. A slow pressure built behind my eyes. I'm continuing toward town, I said. Advise next steps. Copy. Continue. The rest of the drive felt longer than it should have. The town lights eventually appeared. Familiar. Soft. A comfort I didn't realize I needed until I saw them. I pulled into the hospital bay, put the cruiser in park, sat there for a second, listened. No whisper, no static, just the engine ticking. I turned toward the passenger seat. It was empty. No woman, no open door, no seatbelt hanging loose. Just an empty seat. For a moment, I thought I had finally snapped, that I had imagined the whole thing. But then I saw it, the seatbelt, still buckled. My heart started pounding. I jumped out and looked around. The hospital entrance was quiet. No one standing nearby. No barefoot woman wandering a lot. Nothing. I ran inside. Did anyone just come in with me? I asked the nurse at the desk. She looked confused. With you? She asked. Female, I said. Early 20s. Barefoot. Light dress. She shook her head. No one came in with you. I went back outside, searched around my cruiser. Behind it, under it, nothing. I stood there breathing hard, cold air filling my lungs. I called Dispatch. She's gone, I said. Who's gone? Dispatch asked. The woman. She was in my passenger seat. She's gone. Silence. Then, copy. That was it. No questions. No surprise. Just copy. Like they'd already accepted something I hadn't. Morales showed up an hour later. He said he never followed me. He said after we spoke. He walked back to his cruiser to call in an update. When he looked up, my cruiser was gone. He thought I'd pulled off without telling him. He said nothing strange happened. No missing time. No woman whispering. Nothing. I didn't tell him what I heard. I didn't tell anyone. They logged the encounter as a disoriented subject unable to locate. Case closed, except it wasn't. The next night, Dispatch got a call from County Road 17, near mile marker 42. The caller didn't speak, just breathing. They thought it was a butt dial. They hung up. 10 minutes later, the call came again. Same place, same breathing. They traced it. The signal bounced. Couldn't pinpoint an exact phone. They chalked it up as a glitch. Then it happened again, and again, always after midnight, always from the same stretch of road. No voice, no words, just breathing, slow, wet, like lungs struggling. Dispatch finally sent a unit to check the area. Not me, another deputy. He drove the stretch. Didn't find anyone. Didn't find a phone. Didn't find footprints. Not a single one. Mud on the shoulder, soft dirt, leaves. Plenty of places to leave tracks. Nothing. Like no one had been standing there at all. The calls kept coming. Not every night, but often enough. Always between midnight and 3. Always the same. Sometimes Dispatch let it ring. Sometimes they answered. When they answered, they heard breathing. Once, a dispatcher swore she heard a woman crying. Not loud, not hysterical, just soft, like someone trying very hard not to make noise. They asked if anyone was there. The line went dead. I started having trouble sleeping. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. Every time my radio crackled, my stomach tightened. I tried to convince myself it wasn't connected. That strange calls happen. That unexplained stuff happens. But deep down, I knew better. One night, about 2 weeks later, I was on patrol. Different area, different road. Dispatch came over the radio. Keller, you're closest to a call on County Road 17. Breathing only. Same location. My hands went cold. I copy, I said. I didn't want to go, but I did. Because that's what you do. The road looked the same. Dark. Empty. Quiet. My headlights swept over pavement. Nothing. No woman. No shapes. No movement. I pulled over near the mile marker. Got out. The woods felt thick. Heavy. Like they were listening. I shined my flashlight along the shoulder. No footprints. No scuff marks. No signs anyone had stood there. I keyed my radio. I don't see anyone, I said. Static answered. Not dispatch. Just static. Then faint. Breathing. Not from the radio. From behind me. I froze. Didn't turn around. Didn't breathe. The sound was close. Too close. Slow. Wet. Right at shoulder height. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. Just breathing. I spun around. Nothing. Empty road. Empty shoulder. Empty woods. The breathing stopped. My radio crackled. "Keller?" Dispatch said. I didn't find anyone," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. "Copy," Dispatch said. I drove away. Faster than I should have. I didn't look in the mirror. I didn't want to know if something was sitting in my back seat. The calls never stopped. Years have passed. I'm not on nights anymore. I transferred to days. Different routes. Different responsibilities. But sometimes when the station is quiet, when the phones aren't ringing, when the radios are still, I hear it. Not through a speaker. Not through a line. Inside my head. Slow. Wet. Breathing. And I know whatever stood in that road didn't need feet. It didn't need a body. And it never really left that night. It just found a new way to call. I tried to convince myself it was over. After that night on County Road 17, I kept my head down. I took calls. I wrote reports. I went home. I slept with a light on like a kid who didn't want to admit he was scared of the dark. The breathing still came sometimes. Not loud, not clear, just a soft reminder that whatever I met out there hadn't stayed on that road. But weeks passed without anything new. No sightings. No units finding anyone standing in the roadway. Just those strange breathing calls that dispatch logged and quietly set aside. Then came the night the voice spoke. I wasn't working patrol anymore. I had been moved to desk duty after a shoulder injury. Paperwork. Phone calls and helping dispatch when things got busy. It was just after midnight. Donna was working that night. Same dispatcher who'd been there for the other strange calls. She looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes. She kept rubbing her temples like she had a headache that wouldn't go away. I was halfway through a stack of reports when line 1 rang. Donna answered. Claymore County Dispatch. She froze. Not stiff. Not startled. Just stopped. Her hand hovered over the keyboard. Her eyes slowly lifted and met mine. I knew that look. It was the same look I had worn when the woman whispered in my cruiser. "What is it?" I asked. Donna didn't answer. She pressed a button and slid her headset halfway off one ear. "You need to hear this," she whispered. She turned the volume up. At first, all I heard was static. Soft, uneven, then breathing. Slow, wet. My stomach dropped. Donna swallowed. "Ma'am," she said carefully, "can you tell me where you are?" The breathing hitched. Then a sound slipped through. Not a word. Not yet. A soft whimper. Like someone trying not to cry. Donna's hands were shaking. "Ma'am," she said, "we can help you." The whimper turned into a whisper. So faint I almost missed it. "Help." The voice was female. Young. Thin. My mouth went dry. Donna glanced at me. Her eyes were wide. "Can you tell me your location?" Donna asked. Static crackled. Then, "Road." "What road?" Donna asked. "Dark road." My chest felt tight. Donna typed quickly. Do you see any signs? Any mile markers? The breathing grew uneven. Trees. I stood up slowly. Donna's chair creaked. She didn't take her eyes off the monitor. Ma'am, she said, are you hurt? A pause. Then, cold. I felt dizzy. Donna swallowed hard. Can you tell me your name? Static surged. The whisper came back. Don't remember? My hands curled into fists. Donna tried to keep her voice steady. That's okay. We'll figure it out. Just stay with me. The breathing steadied. Then the voice said something that made my blood run cold. He left me. Donna blinked. Who left you? She asked. The whisper hesitated. The deputy. I felt my knees go weak. Donna looked at me, slowly, carefully. Ma'am, she said, do you know the deputy's name? Static hissed. Then, Keller? The room felt like it tilted. Donna's face drained of color. I couldn't breathe. Ask her where she is, I said. My voice sounded far away. Donna nodded. Ma'am, can you tell me where you are right now? The breathing turned shaky. Same place as when. Donna asked. Road. He found me. Donna's fingers flew over the keyboard. She checked the call trace. Her eyes widened. It's pinging County Road 17, she whispered. My heart slammed against my ribs. Donna swallowed. Keller, she said softly. That's your call. I nodded. I couldn't speak. Donna leaned closer to the mic. Ma'am, she said, we're going to send someone to you right now. Just stay on the line, okay? The breathing slowed. Don't hang up. We won't, Donna said. The whisper wavered. He said that. Donna froze. Who said that? She asked. The voice answered. You. Donna's eyes flicked to me. I felt sick. Ma'am, Donna said, do you see anyone near you? Static. Then, no. Are you alone? Donna asked. A pause. Then, not sure. Donna muted her mic and looked at me. I don't like this, she whispered. I'll go, I said. Donna grabbed my arm. No, we sent a unit. I'm the closest, I said. She shook her head. Keller, you shouldn't. I'll go, I repeated. She didn't argue again. She unmuted. Ma'am, an officer's on the way, she said. Stay with me. The whisper softened. Okay. I grabbed my jacket and keys. As I walked out, I could still hear the breathing through Donna's headset. It followed me down the hallway, followed me into the night. The drive felt wrong, not like before, not tense, not heavy, hollow, like I was driving through a place that wasn't quite real. When I reached mile marker 42, I pulled over, got out. The woods stood still, no wind, no insects, just the silence. I keyed my radio. I'm on scene, I said. Donna's voice crackled back. She's still on the line. I looked around. Ma'am. Donna said over the radio speaker in my cruiser, can you see the officer? The breathing came through my radio. Not dispatch. Not my radio. Inside my head. Yes. My skin crawled. Where are you? I said out loud. Silence. Then, right behind me. Here, I spun around. Nothing. Empty road. Empty shoulder. The woods stared back at me. Donna's voice shook over the radio. Keller? She says she can see you. My mouth went dry. Ma'am, Donna said, can you describe what you see? The whisper came through the radio. Through my head. Through everything. He looks tired. My heart pounded. He didn't sleep? That was true. He still feels bad. I whispered, I'm sorry. The breathing hitched. Help me. I don't know how, I said. Static swelled. The whisper grew faint. Don't leave. My radio crackled. Ma'am, Donna said. Stay on the line. The breathing slowed, then stopped. The call disconnected. The woods stayed silent. Donna's voice came back. Keller, the line just went dead. I stood there in the dark, alone, but not really, because sometimes, late at night, when the station is quiet, line 1 rings, and when dispatch answers, they hear a young woman crying, begging for help from a road where no one is ever found. And every time it happens, She asked for me. I've done more welfare checks than I can count. Most of them are nothing. An old person who forgot to answer the phone. Someone asleep with the TV too loud. A neighbor who worries too much. You knock. You wait. You leave. Sometimes you make contact. Sometimes you don't. This one felt wrong before I even stepped out of my cruiser. The call came in just after 11:40 p.m. A woman on Maple Ridge Road hadn't answered her phone in 3 days. Her sister lived out of state. Couldn't reach her. Asked us to check on her. Routine. That's what dispatch called it. But when I pulled onto Maple Ridge Road, I had that quiet feeling in my gut. The one that doesn't scream. The one that whispers. The house sat at the end of the road. Small. One story. White siding. Front porch sagging a little in the middle. The porch light was on. That caught my attention right away. Most people who go missing don't leave lights on. I parked in the driveway and cut the engine. The house made noise. Not loud. Not obvious. Subtle noise. A low hum, like an appliance running. I stepped out. Cold air. Still. No wind. No insects. I walked up the porch steps. They creaked under my weight. I knocked. Sheriff's office. I called. Nothing. I knocked again. Louder. Still nothing. I tried the doorbell. It worked. I could hear it chime inside. Nobody came. I stood there listening. That hum again. Steady, like a refrigerator. Or a furnace. Normal house sounds. Signs of life. But no people. I walked around the side of the house. Looked through the front window. The living room light was on. TV on. No volume. Just moving images flickering against the wall. A couch. A recliner. A coffee table with a half-full mug. No one sitting anywhere. I felt that whisper in my gut again. I tried the front door. Locked. I went back to my cruiser and called dispatch. No answer at Maple Ridge. I said, lights and TV on. I'm going to check the perimeter. Copy, dispatch said. I walked around back. The yard was overgrown. Tall grass. A small shed leaning to one side. The back door was closed. Not locked. I opened it slowly. Sheriff's office. I said, the smell hit me first. Not rot. Not death. Something stale. Like a house that hadn't been aired out in a long time. The kitchen light was on. Sink full of dishes. Counter cluttered with mail. A calendar hung on the wall. The date was circled. 3 days ago. I stepped inside. Hello. I called. My voice sounded too loud. The hum was stronger inside, coming from deeper in the house. I moved slowly. Checked the bathroom. Empty. Bedroom. Bed made. No one there. The second bedroom looked like it was used for storage. Boxes. Old clothes. Nothing out of place. The living room was last. TV still playing. No sound. Just a talk show host smiling at an empty room. I stood there. Listened. That hum again. Not mechanical. Not exactly. It had a rhythm. Almost like breathing. I realized something then. The mug on the coffee table. The coffee inside was dark. Not cold. Still warm. Someone had been there recently. Ma'am. I called. Nothing. I walked toward the hallway. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Soft. Slow. Coming from upstairs. The house didn't have an upstairs. My skin prickled. I stood still. Listened. The sound came again. A slow step. Then another, like someone pacing. Above me, I stared at the ceiling. My heart thumped. This house doesn't have a second floor, I whispered. The footsteps continued, back and forth. Slow, unhurried. I drew my flashlight, shined it down the hallway. Empty. The hum grew louder, deeper, like it was coming from inside the walls. I forced myself to move. The hallway ended at a small door, a closet. I hadn't checked it yet. The footsteps stopped. Silence pressed in. I stood in front of the closet, hand on the knob. My mouth felt dry. Sheriff's office. I said again, if anyone's here, you need to make yourself known. No response. I opened the door. Nothing inside but coats. Old shoes. A vacuum. I exhaled slowly. The hum didn't stop. I turned around. The living room felt different. Not visually, but in the way air feels when something is wrong. The TV flickered. The talk show host froze. Then the screen went black. The hum grew louder, not from one direction, from everywhere. I backed up. My boot brushed something on the floor. I looked down. A cell phone, face down. I picked it up. The screen lit. Missed calls, all from the same contact. Sis, dozens. The last call, 3 days ago. I turned the phone over my hand. Ma'am. I called again. Nothing. I called dispatch. House appears empty, I said, but I've got signs of recent activity. No occupant located so far. Copy, dispatch said. Do you need backup? I hesitated. I don't know yet, I said. The hum dropped lower, deeper. It started to feel less like a sound and more like pressure, like being underwater. I noticed something else. The hallway door, the one that led to the bedrooms. It was open wider than before. I hadn't touched it. I stared at it. The dark beyond felt thick, not empty, full. I took a step toward it. The floor creaked. The hum pulsed. I stopped. My instinct screamed. Not danger. Not attack. Absence. Like something was missing that should have been there. I forced myself forward. One step. Then another. I reached the doorway. The bedroom at the end of the hall wasn't the same. The bed was gone. The dresser was gone. The room was empty, except for something on the floor. A dark shape. I shined my flashlight. It was a blanket, crumpled, like someone had been lying there. I swallowed. No body, no blood, no struggle. Just a place where someone should have been. The hum dropped even lower. It felt like it was inside my head now. I backed away. Slow, careful. I didn't turn my back. I didn't want to see what might be behind me. I reached the front door, unlocked it, opened it. Cold air rushed in. The hum faded. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. The porch light flickered, then went out. I stood there breathing hard. The house went dark. All the lights, all at once. I called for backup. They searched the house, found nothing. No woman, no signs of forced entry, no explanation. They logged it as a missing person. Another name in a system full of names. But I know this. Someone was in that house when I arrived. Someone who didn't want to be found. Someone who left without using a door. And sometimes, when I drive past Maple Ridge Road at night, I see that porch light on. Even though the house is supposed to be empty, I don't tell people this part. Not the full version. Most folks don't want to hear about things that don't fit into clean boxes. They want monsters. They want blood. They want something they can point at and say, yeah, that's the bad thing. What happened that night didn't give me that. It gave me a feeling. And feelings are harder to explain. After Maple Ridge, I kept telling myself it was stress. Long shifts, too much coffee, not enough sleep. That's what I told myself when I went back on patrol 2 nights later. Same stretch of road, same empty darkness, same quiet that feels too big. I didn't expect to be near that house again. I wasn't dispatched there. I wasn't looking for it. But my cruiser rolled past a turn without me realizing. I noticed a street sign, Maple Ridge RD. My foot eased off the gas. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted proof it was just a normal house again. Maybe I wanted to prove I wasn't losing my mind. The porch light was on. My stomach tightened. No one had moved into that place. Utilities were supposed to be shut off. I pulled over, sat there, engine running, radio low. I stared at the house. Nothing moved. No silhouettes. No shadows. Just a quiet house with a single light burning. I told myself I wouldn't get out. I told myself I'd just call it in. Then I saw a movement. Not a person. Not a shape. A curtain. The living room curtain shifted, like something brushed past it. Slow. Heavy. I turned off the engine. The silence rushed in. I sat there for a full minute. Maybe longer. Every instinct said leave. But another part of me said if I leave, I'll never stop thinking about it. So I got out. Cold air again. Same as before. No wind. No insects. Dead quiet. My footsteps sounded too loud. The porch boards creaked. Same creak. Same pattern. I didn't knock right away. I stood there and listened. Nothing. No hum this time. That scared me more. I knocked. Sheriff's office. No answer. I tried the door. Locked. The living room light was on again. TV off this time. Dark screen reflecting my own shape. I walked around back. The back door was unlocked, just like before. I stood there with my hand on the knob. I remember thinking, if I open this door, whatever happens next is my fault. I opened it anyway. The stale smell was back. Not stronger. Not weaker. Exactly the same. Like the house hadn't changed at all. Kitchen light on. Same dishes. Same mug on the coffee table. Still sitting there. Coffee inside was gone. Just a dark ring at the bottom. Like it had dried days ago. Hello? I called. My voice felt small. No answer. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me with a soft click. I didn't like that sound. I checked the kitchen. Empty. Bathroom. Empty. Storage room. Empty. Everything looked exactly like it did before. Too exactly. Like a photograph. I stood in the living room. Listened. At first, I thought I heard nothing. Then I realized I was wrong. There was a sound. Faint. Slow. Not a hum. Not footsteps. Breathing. Deep. Heavy. Like someone asleep. It wasn't coming from any room on the first floor. I tilted my head. The sound was above me. I stared at the ceiling. This house did not have a second floor. I knew that. I'd walked every inch of it. One story. Low roof. No attic access. No staircase. But the breathing was there. Slow in. Slow out. Steady. I told myself it had to be pipes. Or the furnace. Something mechanical. But machines don't breathe. I walked down the hallway. The same hallway. The same empty bedroom at the end. The blanket still on the floor. I didn't go inside. I couldn't make myself. The breathing got louder. Not louder like closer. Louder like clearer. More defined. I could hear a wet sound at the end of each breath. Like lungs working too hard. I backed up, step by step. My heel bumped into the coffee table. The mug rattled. The breathing stopped. Silence crashed down. I froze. Every hair on my arm stood up. I waited. 1 second. 2. 3. Then something moved. Above me. Not walking. Shifting. Like a heavy body rolling over in bed. The ceiling gave a soft creak. Dust drifted down. I took off. Not running. Not screaming. Just fast walking straight to the back door. I didn't look up. I didn't want to know what I might see. My hand hit the door. I yanked it open. Cold air slammed into me. I stumbled outside. The breathing followed me. Not from the house. From inside my head. I clutched my ears. It didn't help. Slow in. Slow out. I ran to my cruiser. Started the engine. The sound vanished. Like someone flipped a switch. I sat there shaking. I called dispatch. Told them I had rechecked Maple Ridge. Told them I heard possible movement inside. They sent another unit. We went in together. 2 of us. Flashlights. Weapons drawn. No breathing. No movement. No sounds at all. The house was silent. Again, we checked the ceiling. No attic. No crawl space. No access panels. Nothing. My partner looked at me like I was tired. Like I needed a day off. Maybe he was right. But I know what I heard. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it. Slow. Heavy. Breathing. Not in my ears. Not in my room. In my chest. Like my lungs weren't my own anymore. Since then, I've noticed something. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I'll catch myself holding my breath. Not because I'm scared. Not because I'm trying to be quiet. I don't even realize I'm doing it. It's like part of me is afraid that if I breathe too loud, something upstairs will breathe back. I drove home that night in silence. The kind of silence that presses in from every side. Not the comfortable quiet of a long night shift ending, but heavy, thick, like the air itself is waiting. I kept thinking about Maple Ridge Road, about that house, about the breathing I swore I heard upstairs. I told myself it was nothing, just pipes, just a trick of my imagination. I repeated that to myself over and over, but my chest still ached. My hands still shook on the steering wheel. When I pulled into my driveway, the house looked normal, just as it always had. The lights warm behind the windows, the garden overgrown, the mailbox leaning the same way it had since I bought the place. I unlocked the door, stepping inside, thinking maybe finally I could relax. The smell hit me first. Not bad, not rotten, just wrong. Faint but familiar, like dust mixed with damp wood. And something older, something I couldn't name. It wasn't coming from anything in the house. I realized immediately. It was around me, with me. I flicked on the lights. Everything was exactly as I left it that morning. The dishes in the sink, the mail on the counter, my jacket on the hook by the door. Nothing out of place. Nothing moving. I exhaled slowly, trying to convince myself. Maple Ridge was over. I'd checked it. The house was empty. The breathing, the footsteps, nothing could follow me home. Nothing could leave that house. And yet, I sat down at the kitchen table to calm my nerves. My coffee was cold in the mug. I picked it up, stared at it, and noticed the air in the room felt heavier, harder to draw in. My stomach knotted. Something was in the corners of the house, just out of the light's reach. I could feel it. I didn't hear it. I felt it. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, but imagination doesn't make the floorboards creak under a weight that isn't there. I got up, walked slowly through the living room, the hall, the bedrooms. Everything was empty. Nothing moved. The ceiling fan spun lazily. The hum of the refrigerator filled the gaps. I stopped at my bedroom door and hesitated. I couldn't shake the feeling that the house had shifted while I was gone, that it had grown taller, or maybe smaller. The shadows seemed closer to the walls. The corners seemed darker, the air heavier. I turned the knob and stepped inside. Everything was normal. My bed, unmade from the morning, clothes in the chair, the window slightly cracked open. I sat on the edge of the mattress, tried to breathe slowly, tried to convince myself I was safe. But the breathing started again, slow, wet, deep, not coming from the walls, not from the vents, not mechanical, not far away, not upstairs. Right behind me, I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. My hands clenched into fists. I turned slowly. Nothing. The room was empty. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't take a full breath. The breathing continued. Soft, deliberate, waiting, watching. I whispered, "Who's there?" Silence. Then the softest scrape of something moving across the floor. Not deliberate, not careful. Heavy, slow, close. I couldn't tell which direction it was coming from. The sound filled the room. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But my legs wouldn't move. I remembered the house on Maple Ridge. I remembered the blanket on the floor. I remembered thinking someone had been lying there. Someone who had left without a trace. And now, I couldn't shake the feeling that the same presence had followed me home. I told myself it couldn't be possible, but every instinct in my body said otherwise. I grabbed my flashlight from the nightstand, swept it across the room. Shadows stretched, but nothing moved. I swept it again. Nothing. The breathing continued, slow and steady, like a reminder I couldn't ignore. I backed toward the door, keeping my eyes on the beam of light. Every creak of the floorboards under my feet made me flinch. I opened the door, peeking into the hallway. Empty, normal, everything in place. I moved toward the kitchen, the living room. Everywhere I looked, the house was perfectly normal, but the weight in the air followed me, heavy on my shoulders, pressing into my chest. I stopped, listened. The breathing had stopped. I exhaled. My knees weakened. I slumped against the counter. I told myself it was over. Maybe it really was. Maybe I had imagined it all. I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee. The liquid was warm, the mug solid in my hands. I lifted it to my lips and paused. A whisper, not over the radio, not outside, not coming from anywhere in the room. Inside my head, soft, urgent, trembling. "Don't leave." I dropped the mug. It shattered on the tile. The sound made the shadows flicker. My hands shook. My heart raced. My mouth went dry. I called dispatch. Just to say something, anything. "Keller?" Donna answered, her voice groggy. Everything okay? I swallowed. Yeah, everything's fine. Just a long night. Uh-huh, she said. She didn't sound convinced. You sound tired. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. Yeah, tired. I hung up, sat back down, tried to convince myself, tried to breathe, tried to drink coffee, but my hands were still shaking too much. Then it started again. Slow, wet, deep, right behind me. I didn't move. I didn't turn. My mind raced, trying to rationalize. Maybe it was the pipes. Maybe it was the furnace. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe it was just stress. But I knew this was an imagination. I felt it brush past me. Not like air. Not like a person. Like pressure. Like something alive. But not fully corporeal. Something that shouldn't exist. Something that had followed me. I whispered, barely audible, "Go away." The room stayed silent. I couldn't stay there. Not like this. I left the house. Didn't lock the door. Didn't turn off the lights. Just stepped outside. The night was cold, quiet, normal, but I could feel it in the air around me. Heavy, patient, waiting. I drove to the station. Sat in my cruiser for hours. Eyes on the road. Heart pounding. My mind replaying the house, the blanket, the breathing. I didn't call anyone. I didn't want to explain it. Nobody would believe me. When I finally went home hours later, the house was still. Everything looked normal. But the weight, the presence, it never left. Even now, I can feel in my own home, in my own bed, lying there, staring at the ceiling, hearing the quiet, steady breathing just beyond my awareness. Not in the vents, not outside, inside. I don't know if it's attached to me now, if it followed me from Maple Ridge, if it waits, patient, for me to sleep. I don't know if I'll ever be free. I just know it's still there. And every time I hear my own breath, I wonder if it's listening too. I was sitting at my console, half distracted, half tired, when the phone started ringing. It wasn't unusual. Calls coming all the time. People panicking. People needing help. People who just wanted someone to talk to after a long night. But this one felt wrong before I even touched the receiver. I glanced at the screen. Line 3, my co-worker station. Empty. No one logged in. No one supposed to be sitting there. I frowned, picked up the headset. Claymore County Dispatch, this is Keller. I said, keeping my voice steady. Silence. Then a whisper. Soft, low, broken, almost too faint to hear. I leaned closer, trying to catch it. Help. My stomach dropped. I looked around. The room was empty except for me. Monitors flickering with their usual green glow. Headsets hanging on hooks. Chairs pushed in. Nobody. I pressed the talk button again. Hello? Who is this? Static. Then the whisper again, closer this time. Easier. I froze. My hand hovered over the keyboard. My mind scrambled. No one else was supposed to be in the room. The doors were locked, as always. The cameras didn't show anyone. I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was a cross line, someone prank calling. But the tone, it wasn't playful. It wasn't human, exactly. It was urgent, afraid, waiting. Don't leave. The whisper stopped. My chest tightened. I realized my pulse had doubled. I looked at the empty chair beside me. The one my co-worker usually sat in. It was swiveled slightly, not exactly facing the console. I hadn't touched it. My fingers itched to check the logs, the cameras, anything. I called the station. Keller here. Line 3, unmanned desk, something strange. No answer. The whisper came again, through the headset. Clear now. I can see him. The lights flickered. My stomach sank. I pressed the mute button, thinking maybe my mind was playing tricks, that my brain had just imagined something. But the whisper didn't stop. I could hear it, faint, inside the headset, even muted. He's watching. I swallowed hard. My fingers trembled. I looked around. No one. Just the empty workstation, the empty chair, the hum of the computers. I got up slowly. My chair squeaked against the floor. The whisper paused. Then, softer. Don't. I leaned over the console, checked the station logs. No calls, no sign of anything unusual. The station was supposed to be unmanned. I double-checked the cameras. Nothing. Empty hallways. Dark stairwells. The lights in the other rooms flickered once. But I didn't see movement. I stepped back, heart hammering. Something was wrong. My hands shook, but I had to stay. I had to know what was happening. Please? The voice whispered again. My own voice cracked when I said, "Who are you?" No answer. Just the hum of the computers. I felt a pressure, subtle but insistent, as if someone was leaning close behind me, watching every move. I spun around. Empty. I told myself to calm down. Rationally. Reasonably. Nobody else could be here. The doors are locked. The cameras didn't show anyone. Nothing should be happening. And yet, I heard the soft creak of a chair moving behind me. I froze. No wind. No vibration. Just the sound of the chair scraping against the floor, inch by inch. I dared not turn. The whisper returned, soft, almost reverent. "He's tired." I swallowed, my throat dry. "Who's tired?" I whispered back. My voice sounded foreign even to me. "You?" My skin crawled. I finally turned. Empty chair. Empty desk. Empty workstation. Nothing. The lights flickered again. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. I told myself it was a trick of the mind. Exhaustion. Too much time alone with the monitors, the endless static and background noise. Then it spoke again, closer now, urgent. "Don't leave." I grabbed my headset, yanked it off the hook, and slammed it on the desk. The whisper stopped. Silence. I exhaled, trying to convince myself it was over, but I knew better. I could still feel it, like heat on the back of my neck, like the empty seat wasn't so empty anymore. I called the security office. Nothing. Checked the cameras again. Hallways empty. Doors locked. No signs of anyone entering or leaving. I sat back down, heart still racing. The station was quiet, normal, but the weight of that empty seat pressed against me. I couldn't shake it. Hours later, my shift ended. I left the console, went home. The voice stayed with me. Soft, faint, inside my mind, whispering, waiting. And I know, every time I think of that empty seat, it's not really empty. It's never empty. I still remember the moment I realized I wasn't alone. It started small. A hum from the monitors, low and rhythmic, almost like a pulse. I was sitting at my console, trying to push the memory of the empty seat out of my mind. I told myself it was nothing. Exhaustion, stress, repetition. You learn to rationalize anything in this job, because if you don't, you go crazy. Line 3 lit up again. The same unmanned station. My fingers froze above the keyboard. My stomach turned cold. I didn't want to answer. I wanted to leave the console and walk out, tell someone, anything, but something held me there, a force I couldn't name. Finally, I reached for the headset. The line clicked as I pressed a button. I whispered, my voice small, "Claymore County Dispatch. This is Keller. Who's there?" The response was immediate. A voice, distorted, garbled, not human, not exactly. It warped through the speakers, like metal bent into speech. "Cap?" I dropped the headset for a second, thinking I misheard. Picked it up again. Same voice, same warped whisper, calling my name. My pulse thumped in my ears. My hands were clammy, but I forced myself to press the talk button again. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice shaking. Silence. Then the distorted voice again. "You can't leave?" I froze. My eyes darted to the empty workstation. Chair pushed in. No one logged in. Nothing on the cameras. The hallways empty. And yet, the voice knew my name. Knew my voice. I backed away slightly, almost tripping over my own chair. The voice continued, slower this time, almost deliberate. "Keller," I whispered. "How? How do you know that?" My words trembled. Static crackled in my ears. The voice laughed, a sound that shouldn't have been a laugh, like nails scraping a chalkboard but soft, wet, impossible to place. Always watching. I pressed my hands to my head. trying to force sense into my thoughts. "You're not real," I said aloud, though even I didn't believe it. The voice responded immediately. "Real enough." I grabbed the headset again, yanking it off the hook. "Who are you? What do you want?" The distortion twisted, stretched, and then it spoke normally, not entirely clear, but unmistakably human. "Help me." My stomach turned over. "Help you?" I whispered. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. "I'm not sure I can." "You can." The voice was everywhere now, not coming from the headset alone, not just in the room. It was in the air, inside my chest, inside my skull. I could feel it pressing against me. Slow, steady waiting. I stood, my chair scraping against the tile floor. The sound made the voice pause. Careful, I looked at the empty workstation, my mind racing. How could it speak from an empty desk? From a logged-out station? From nothing at all? "Don't look." I froze again, my body stiff. The lights flickered overhead. Shadows shifted. My own reflection in the monitor looked wrong. I blinked, and for a split second, I swore I saw someone sitting there. Chair tilted back slightly. Head down, hands on the keyboard. Then gone. My breath came fast. My heart pounded. I forced myself to speak. "If you're here, why? Where are you?" The distorted voice answered immediately. Not alone. I stumbled backward. The room felt smaller, tighter. The monitors flickered faster, buzzing in my ears. The voice whispered again, slow, deliberate. "You see me?" I shook my head. "No, I don't." "You can." The words weren't coming through the headset now. They weren't echoing from the empty workstation. They were inside me, curling around my spine, my chest, my thoughts. I could feel them, like they were tasting the edges of my mind. I tried to speak, tried to shout, but my voice wouldn't come. Just my heartbeat loud in my ears. The voice came again, closer this time. "Don't leave." I moved toward the door, shaking, heart hammering. The voice followed, stretching and distorting with each step. "Always here." I yanked open the office door. Hallway dark, empty, nothing. I ran down the stairs. Tried to call for help over the radio. Static, nothing but static. The distorted voice slithered over it. Alone, I ran outside. The night air was sharp in my lungs. Normal. The cameras outside showed empty parking lots. Dark hallways. Nothing, but I could still hear it. Soft, warped, persistent. "Don't go." I drove home that night without looking back. Lights of the station fading behind me. Heart still racing. Head pounding. Hands trembling. When I got inside my apartment, the silence was overwhelming, but it wasn't quiet. I could still feel it, pressing against the walls, in my own chest, whispering from the shadows. Still here? I can't explain it. I can't tell anyone. They'd laugh, say I'm tired, say I'm imagining things. But I know what I heard. I know what I felt. And sometimes when I sit alone at my own desk, late at night, I swear I hear it again. That distorted voice calling my name, waiting, patient, real, and I know it's not over. Not by a long shot. I can still hear it. Not over the headset. Not from any line, any speaker. Not through anything that makes sense. It's just there lingering, waiting, a presence that shouldn't exist, calling my name, whispering into corners of my mind where I can't ignore it. When I checked the logs at night, after the station had gone quiet, I realized something that made my stomach turn colder than the air outside in February. There were no records of the calls. None. Not one entry. No incoming calls. No outgoing. No missed notifications. Nothing. The screen was blank, clean, perfectly normal. I clicked through the archives, thinking maybe I'd missed something, but the logs didn't lie. There was nothing, and yet I had heard them, clearly, distorted at first. Warped voices that called my name, whispered warnings, made me feel small and watched, and then unmistakably human, pleading, urgent, and they weren't coming from the headset anymore. They were inside my skull, inside my chest, breathing with me, pressing against my thoughts. I remember sitting at the console, staring at the blank log screen, shaking, I didn't know whether to panic, to laugh, or to vomit. I didn't even realize how long I had been sitting there. The quiet of the dispatch center pressed in, heavier than it should have been, and I could feel that same weight in my own body, my own mind. Keller? The voice came again. Low, fragmented, a warped echo of the human tone I had heard earlier. My heart skipped. I looked at the empty headset, lying on the desk. No one there. No station logged in. No movement in the hallway. Nothing. Don't leave. I rubbed my eyes, blinked hard, tried to convince myself it was exhaustion. Too many shifts, too little sleep, too much coffee. But it wasn't exhaustion. Exhaustion doesn't make a voice call your name when no one else is there, when the logs say nothing ever happened. I grabbed the headset again, pressed it to my ear, half expecting it to scream static, half expecting nothing. The line was dead, dead silent, and yet the voice returned. Soft, almost teasing. Still here. I spun in my chair. Hallways empty. Cameras showed nothing. The station was locked down tight, and still it spoke. Keller? I couldn't breathe properly. My lungs felt tight. My fingers trembled as I reached for the keyboard, trying to type something into the log, some record of what I was hearing, but the keys felt sticky, heavy, like they didn't belong to me. Every time I tried, the letters appeared wrong, or disappeared before I could finish. The presence pressed closer, not physical, not visible, but I could feel it in my chest, in my jaw, in the back of my skull. Waiting, patient. It knew I was alone. It knew I had no one else to turn to. You can't ignore me. I whispered back, barely audible. I don't understand. Who are you? The reply came instantly, warped, distorted, low at first, and then clearer, human, pleading. I need help. My stomach turned. I swallowed hard. Help how? Who are you? Where are you? No answer, only the feeling that something was pressing closer, wrapping around my consciousness. That same weight I had felt in the empty seat. That same pressure that followed me after Maple Ridge. I left the headset on the desk and leaned back, heart hammering, trying to slow my breathing. I needed rationality. I needed logic. I needed something I could hold on to. But there was none. Just the voices. Distorted. Human. Clear. Urgent. Repeating my name over and over. Keller, you see me? I shook my head. No, I don't see anyone. Yet, the word lingered in the air like smoke. I could feel it in my hair, in my ears, brushing against my skin. Not cold, not hot, just wrong. Alien in a way I couldn't articulate. I got up in pace, tried to leave, tried to convince myself that moving would help. But every step I took, every inch of space I put between myself and the empty workstation, the voice followed, inside my chest, inside my skull, not through wires, not over speakers. Inside me, still here. I opened the door to the hallway. Empty, dark. Cameras showed nothing. The station was quiet, yet I could feel its gaze on me. Its waiting, patient presence. I could almost see the shadows shift, though I knew it was impossible. I went outside. The air was cold, sharp against my lungs. Normal, clear, the night quiet, but it was still there, whispering, waiting, patient, unrelenting. You can't escape. I sat in my cruiser for hours, windows down despite the cold, gripping the steering wheel, trying to slow my pulse, try to convince myself that it was gone, that leaving the station would leave it behind, that exhaustion and imagination were enough to explain it. But I knew better. The logs don't show the calls. The station doesn't record the voice. And yet, I heard it, clear as anything. Distorted, warped, human, impossible. And it didn't stop. It followed me home, threaded itself into my thoughts, whispered when I tried to sleep, lurking behind every shadow, behind every creak in the floor, behind every moment of silence. I tried telling someone, my partner, my supervisor, the logs, there's nothing. I said, line 3, calls. No one else logged in. Nothing in the archives. But I heard voices. They looked at me like I was tired. Go home. Sleep. You're imagining it. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was tired. But I know what I heard. I know what I felt. Sometimes I hear it even now, whispering in my mind, calling my name, distorted, warped, pleading, waiting, patient, and I know it isn't over. Not by a long shot. The logs won't show it. The cameras won't capture it. But it's real, and it's still here, always waiting, always watching, always speaking. And I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. I got the call just past midnight. Dispatch's voice was tense, clipped, the kind you only hear when something's already gone wrong. Unit 12. Cruiser found abandoned. Lights on, engine off, no sign of the officer. I froze in the passenger seat beside my partner. My stomach tightened. Unit 12 was one of ours, veteran patrol, never miss a check-in. The thought of him gone, it didn't compute. The road to the location was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your own tires sound deafening against the asphalt. Streetlights cast long, uneven shadows that move with the wind, but nothing else. No headlights ahead. No one else patrolling. Just me, my partner, and the dread building in the car. We turned onto the side road that led to where Unit 12's car was reported. I noticed the hazard lights first. Flickering, orange against the dark, flashing in rhythm with the panic building in my chest. My hands tightened around the wheel. There it was, parked awkwardly at the edge of the shoulder. No one inside, no one around. Engine cold, doors locked. The cruiser looked normal, except it wasn't. Not normal, not right. The lights flashed, but there was no officer at the wheel. Just emptiness. I stepped out. Cold night air cut through my jacket. The hum of the flashing lights made my stomach twist. I moved closer, careful, my boots crunching against gravel. The cruiser looked untouched. Nothing inside. Cup holder empty. Radio dead. Handcuffs in place. Weapons stowed. Nothing missing. Nothing disturbed. Just empty. I circled the car, checking every inch. Nothing. The back seat, the trunk, everything accounted for. My partner stayed close, flashlight scanning the tree lean. Neither of us spoke. There was no noise except the hum of the hazard lights and the wind in the trees. I tried the radio. Static. My own voice crackled back at me. Unit 12, do you copy? Nothing. Not a word. My stomach sank further. This wasn't just a missing officer. This was impossible. I checked the dashboard. No note. No sign of a struggle. The doors were locked, like someone or something had just disappeared from the driver's seat. My throat went dry. The tree lean behind the cruiser stirred. Not a sound. Not a shape. Just movement in the shadows. I froze. My partner tensed beside me. I felt it then. That creeping dread you get when your gut tells you the world has tilted slightly, and nothing is as it should be. Keller? I jumped. My name, whispered so faintly it could have been the wind. My heart raced. My head spun toward the sound. Nothing. Just trees, shadows, the flashing lights. I whispered back, Unit 12? Is that you? No answer. I called dispatch again, my voice louder this time, shaking. Unit 12 found. Empty cruiser. No officer. Responding units. Static. A pause. Then the same low whisper, distorted to the radio. Don't. I swallowed hard. My fingers tightened on the car. Don't what? Who is this? The whisper repeated, elongated. Don't look. I turned slowly. Nothing. The cruiser stood there, flashing lights like a heartbeat against the darkness. The tree lean was still. Nothing moved, but I could feel it. That presence. Watching. Waiting. Patient. I circled the cruiser again. Nothing had changed. No footprints. No signs. Nothing to explain how a man could vanish from a locked vehicle. My mind ran through every scenario. Foul play. Abduction. Accident. But nothing fit. It didn't add up. I tried to stay calm. Talk to my partner. We'll check the cameras. Maybe traffic cams caught something. Someone else passed by. He shook his head. Nothing. Dead cameras. Nothing in the area. It's like he just up and vanished. I stepped closer to the cruiser again. Hazard lights painted the gravel orange and white. Every shadow seemed too dark, Every rustle in the trees too loud. My hand brushed the roof of the car. It was cold, heavier than it should have been, as if the car itself were holding its breath. Then I heard it again, whispering, closer this time. "He's here." My knees went weak. I spun. Nothing. The shadows didn't move. The wind didn't shift. My flashlight beam cut across the trees, landing on nothing but darkness. The hair on my neck stood up. I took a deep breath, told myself it was nerves, a trick of the mind. Keller? I froze. Clear. Human. My own name. My breath caught in my throat. I tried to answer, but my voice caught. Unit 12? The whisper turned into a faint, broken sound. Static mixed with words I couldn't understand. "Help me." I stumbled back. My partner grabbed my arm. "What is it?" I heard him. "Unit 12, he's trying to..." The whisper stopped. Nothing. Only the wind, the flashing lights, the empty cruiser. We waited. Called again. Nothing. No response. No sign. Just the car. Just the shadows. Just the quiet that presses into your chest until you can barely breathe. I didn't want to touch the cruiser again. Didn't want to go near it. But we had to process it. Call for backup. Make sure it was checked. I reached for the driver's side door. Locked. Still locked. The engine cold. Everything untouched. My partner's flashlight swept the area. Trees, road, brush. Nothing. But the feeling remained. Heavy. Patient. Watching. I wanted to leave. Run. Tell someone. But I couldn't. Part of me needed to know. Needed to see. Needed to understand. And then it whispered again. "Don't leave." I froze. Every instinct screamed to turn and run. But I didn't. My partner looked at me, eyes wide, pale in the flashing orange light. "Did you hear that?" I nodded. Couldn't speak. Couldn't move. The whisper came again, closer now, as if it were right beside us, though no one was there. "He's watching." I felt the hair on my arm stand on end, my throat dry, my stomach twisting. My hands shook. Hazard lights flashed, painting long shadows that moved with each pulse. I backed away slowly, eyes fixed on the cruiser, the place where Unit 12 had vanished, where the impossible had happened. Keller? And then nothing. The wind picked up. The shadows receded. The whispers disappeared. The cruiser sat there, blinking its orange warning, engine cold, doors locked, completely ordinary. But I knew it wasn't ordinary. I knew what had been there, felt it, heard it, and I knew it wasn't gone. Even now, when I drive past that stretch of road, when I close my eyes at night, I hear the whispers, soft, urgent, waiting, calling my name. And I know that cruiser, those lights flashing in the dark, the empty seat, it will never let me forget. I sat in my cruiser, the night thick around me, headlights cutting into the darkness but never far enough. My partner had gone back to check the perimeter of where Unit 12 had vanished, leaving me alone with the hum of the engine and the soft, rhythmic flashing of the patrol lights. That quiet, the kind of quiet that presses into your chest and makes your ears ring, was the kind you never get used to. Then the radio crackled. Not the normal chatter, not the static-filled transmissions we were used to. This was different, broken, soft, distant at first, almost drowned by the hiss of the speaker. Keller? My stomach dropped. My hands tightened on the wheel. I stared at the radio, thinking I had misheard, but it repeated, clear, slow, deliberate. Keller? I swallowed hard. Unit 12? Is that you? My voice sounded small, fragile, and I hated it. There should have been no one. Nothing. The cruiser was alone. The road behind me was empty, and yet the radio was alive. "I'm here." I froze. The voice wasn't right. It was distorted, warped, like someone was speaking through a broken megaphone underwater. But it was him. Unit 12. I could feel it, not just in my ears, but in the pit of my stomach, in the back of my skull. He was calling, but not in the way a normal radio call would sound. He was reaching. Somehow, I flipped the volume knob, thinking maybe the radio had gone rogue, picking up some distant signal. But it didn't matter. The voice followed, whispered, soft, insistent, impossible to ignore. "Don't leave." I ran through every rational explanation. Interference, cross frequencies, prank calls, but none of it made sense. The voice wasn't generic. It knew my name. It knew me. It knew this cruiser. My mind recoiled at the thought. How could it? Keller? I pressed the button to talk. Unit 12, where you? Talk to me. My words sounded hollow even to me. The distorted voice replied, fragmented, broken, pleading. Help me. My chest tightened. My mind spun. Every fiber of logic screamed that there was no one here. No one could be, and yet I could feel him. Not physically, not in the way you touch someone, but like a shadow, a pressure, a presence wrapping around my consciousness. Waiting, patient. I grabbed the mic again. I'm here. I'm here. Tell me where you are. Closer? My hands trembled. I gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The word lingered, stretched across the speaker in a way that felt wrong. Closer, not in distance, not in sound, but in feeling. In my chest, in my mind. I tried the emergency frequency. Static, white noise, nothing. Then, faintly, the same distorted whisper. Don't look. I froze. My eyes darted around the cruiser. Shadows pooled in the trees along the roadside. The wind stirred, but nothing moved. My partner wasn't back yet. The night felt heavier, thicker. The radio hissed. The voice whispered. The world had contracted around me. He's here. I pressed my palm to my face, tried to force the terror away, tried to call rational thoughts forward, but nothing worked. The voice was inside me now, not just in the radio, but inside my head, curling around my thoughts, echoing between every beat of my heart. I backed the cruiser up slowly, keeping my eyes on the dark tree line. Unit 12, if you can hear me, I'm coming. I'll find you. You can't. I swallowed hard. I wanted to run. I wanted to abandon the cruiser, leave the lights flashing and the engine humming in the darkness. But my feet were frozen to the floor, my chest tight, my mind replaying every missing detail, every unanswered question from the night before. Keller, don't. The distorted voice shifted again. It became human, faintly, pleading, urgent. Help me. I shut my eyes, tried to breathe, tried to tell myself it was a trick, an echo, some interference. But I knew it was real, real enough that I could feel it press against me, coil around my thoughts, make my blood run cold. I picked up the radio, pressed it to my mouth. I'm here. I'll find you. Static, the faint whisper again. Closer? I leaned back, heart racing, mind screaming. The shadows of the night stretched long and impossible. Trees bent in ways they shouldn't have. The road seemed narrower, folding in on itself. The radio hissed, and still I could hear him, not through the air, not through wires. Inside me, waiting. Keller, help? I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I could only listen, trapped inside the hum of the cruiser, the flashing lights, and the distorted voice that had somehow found a way to reach me, through nothing, through everything. And even now, when I try to close my eyes and sleep, I can hear it, soft, insistent, waiting, calling my name. Never far, never gone. Unit 12 is missing, but the voice is still alive. And I know, with every beat of my heart, that it's coming for me next. I never expected to see it again. Years had passed since Unit 12 disappeared. Years of questioning, searching, and slowly convincing myself I would never understand what happened that night. The cruiser abandoned, the radio alive, the whispers in my mind. It all felt like a shadow at the edge of memory, terrifying but untouchable, until the day I logged in for a routine check of old dispatch records. I clicked through the database, half asleep, tired from shifts that never seemed to end. My eyes caught something that made my stomach seize. Unit 12's login. Still active. The system showed him there. Not logged out. Not inactive. Active. I blinked. Twice. 3 times. My hand hovered over the mouse. No, that's impossible. He disappeared. Vanished. Gone. They called it missing. We assumed the worst. And yet the system insisted. He had never logged out. My chest tightened. I leaned closer. The timestamp on the screen was current, not old, not archived. Current, active right now, as if he were sitting at the station, staring at the monitors, waiting. I swallowed hard. My fingers trembled. I tried to click away, thinking maybe it was a glitch, a bug in the software. But it wasn't. The cursor hovered over his name, and the system refused to let me close the record. It was there, waiting, persistent, alive. Keller? I froze. The voice came from nowhere. Not the radio, not the speakers, just inside my head. Faint at first, a whisper I almost ignored. But it grew, clear, urgent, familiar. Unit 12, calling my name. I pressed my hands to my face, tried to force myself to breathe, tried to convince myself I was tired. Too many shifts, too much stress. But I knew the voice. I knew the presence. And I knew it wasn't imaginary. Don't leave? The whisper wrapped around me, coiling through my chest, my skull. Not physical, not tangible, but heavy, patient, watching, waiting. I shook my head, tried to focus on the screen, tried to rationalize. The system could be wrong. A leftover cache, a misconfigured account. But the presence didn't let me. It pressed closer, warped my thoughts, made my skin crawl. Keller, help? I swallowed hard, voice trembling. I don't understand. Where are you? What happened? Silence. Then the faint hum of the system, the timestamp blinking. Active, never logged out, always there, watching. I realized then that it didn't matter where he went or how. The system, the station, the memory of the files. It was a tether, a thread connecting me to him, to the disappearance, to the whispers that had never left. I'm here. The words were in my mind now, not the radio, not the speakers. Inside me, pressing, patient, unrelenting. I could feel the hum of the old patrol system, the cold weight of the empty cruiser, the abandoned lights flashing in my memory, all blending into one. He's here. I leaned back, chest tight, staring at the screen. Years had passed. And yet, in some way I could not explain, he had never left. The account never logged out. The system still showed him active. And I realized with a sick twist in my stomach that it wasn't just a glitch. It never had been. The whispers returned, soft, persistent. Keller, don't leave. I tried to look away, to close the file. My hand shook, but the cursor refused to move. The system seemed alive, pulsing under my fingers. The presence wrapped tighter around my thoughts, threading through my memory that night. The abandoned cruiser, the flashing lights, the empty streets. I can't, I whispered aloud, my own voice foreign to me. I can't leave him. The system hummed. The voice persisted. Inside my head now, not just calling, but demanding, waiting, patient. The deputy had never logged out, never left, and somehow, some impossible way, he had waited for me all these years. I knew then that it wasn't a system error, not a glitch, not a coincidence. Unit 12 was still here, still active, and the whispers, the weight in my chest, it would never let me forget. I sank back in my chair. The monitors glowed around me, casting shadows I couldn't shake. The timestamp blinked. Active. The voice whispered, waiting, watching. And I understood in the deepest part of my mind that some things never log out. Some things never leave. Some presences never stop waiting. Even years later, even across time, the system, the memory, the whispers, they were still alive. And I would hear them again as long as I lived. Keller? And I knew, with every fiber of my being, he had never logged out. I walked into the booking area just past midnight, coffee in hand, trying to shake off the fatigue that never really left me. The station was quiet, too quiet for a weekday night, but normal enough for the dead hours. The hum of the fluorescent lights above was steady, almost comforting, until I reached the row of holding cells. Cell 3 caught my eye immediately. The door was locked, tight, metal, the kind of lock you could hear click from a foot away. Nothing unusual there, except it was empty. I frowned. I checked it less than an hour ago. No one had been booked. Dispatch hadn't mentioned a call bringing in a prisoner. The log confirmed it. No arrests, no transfers, nothing. Yet the door was locked. I stepped closer, ran my fingers along the cold metal bars. The lock was solid. The handle wouldn't budge. I tested it. Click. Tight. The latch didn't move. I checked the log again, scrolling through the last few hours. Nothing. No code for prisoner entry. No notes. The jailer's log was clear. Empty. And yet the door remained shut. My stomach twisted. Not with fear exactly. Not yet. But with the creeping sense that something had shifted in the station while I wasn't looking. Something small, subtle, impossible to explain. Hello? I muttered, more to myself than anyone else. My voice sounded loud in the quiet of the night. No reply, just the hum of the lights, the soft creak of the floor beneath my boots. I leaned closer, eyeing the empty cell. The shadows inside stretched long and thin under the harsh fluorescent light. The corners dark as though they had absorbed the absence itself. I could almost feel the air press in. Thicker here than in the hallway. I pulled out my radio. Clicked the button. Dispatch, this is Keller. Cell 3 is locked. I didn't book anyone. Can you confirm? Static. Then the familiar calm voice of dispatch. Copy, Keller. Checking logs. Stand by. I stepped back, crossing my arms, trying to slow the rising tension in my chest. My mind ran through every logical explanation. Lock malfunction. Someone pranking the system. Cleaning staff locking it by mistake. But none of it fit. The station was nearly empty, and the records didn't lie. No one had been brought in. The lock clicked again. Not mechanically. I swear it clicked on its own. A faint sound, like a heartbeat, somewhere between real and imagined. My heart jumped. Hello? I said again, this time louder, sharper. If someone's in there, speak up. Nothing. I circled the cell, scanning the hallway. Other cells were open, empty, clean, no signs of disturbance. But cell 3 remained shut, solid, unyielding, impossibly locked. My mind refused to settle. Something about that door, its presence, its stubborn silence, felt deliberate, like it was holding itself together for a reason. I crouched to examine the lock closer. Cold metal, no scratches, no signs of tampering. Nothing, just locked, solid, permanent, yet empty. I reached out to touch the bars. The metal was freezing against my skin. My reflection shimmered in the window of the adjacent control room. The fluorescent lights flickered. My hand shook. My breath caught in my throat. Keller? You there? Dispatch. Their voice came through my radio, a little static in the background. Yeah, I'm here, I said, trying to keep calm. Cell 3, no record of anyone booked. Doors locked. No one inside. There was a pause. Static hummed. Confirmed. Dispatch said finally, no one was booked. No logs. How is that possible? I didn't answer. I couldn't, because I already knew. I knew that Cell had been holding something. Something that didn't appear in any log. Something that didn't exist on paper. But I could feel it. It was patient, waiting. I could feel it weight pressing against the air. Heavy, unmoving, silent. And it wasn't the lock or the bars that made my skin crawl. It was the awareness behind them. Something or someone was behind that door in a way that didn't make sense. I stood there, staring at the empty cell, listening to the quiet, the hum of the lights, the faint creak of the floor, my own heartbeat. But under it all, something else. A subtle vibration, a pull, a tension that I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe I'd been working too many late shifts. Maybe I was tired. But the lock, solid. The cell empty. And that feeling, that knowing presence, impossible to ignore. Keller, you still there? Dispatch again. My throat went dry. Yeah, still here. I whispered, almost to myself. I circled the cell one more time, every shadow shifting, every sound amplified. Nothing moved, nothing appeared, just the locked door, just the emptiness. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was full of eyes watching, waiting, patient. that some kind of life or consciousness or shadow was contained there, refusing to be seen, refusing to be logged, refusing to leave, threaded through the air. I pressed my hand to the bars again. The cold pressed back against my skin. My reflection in the polished floor flickered. My breathing grew shallow. I couldn't explain it. Nothing made sense. Dispatch confirmed again. No record. Empty cell. Locked door. Nothing. I backed away slowly. Chest tight. Mind racing. I knew then that some things in the station never needed to be logged. Some presences didn't need paperwork. Some simply waited. I left the booking area and walked down the hallway, leaving the fluorescent lights buzzing behind me. My heart still pounded, every instinct screaming that cell 3 was not empty. Never empty. Not really. And I knew, even as I tried to convince myself I was imagining it, I would never forget the weight of that locked door, the silent patience of something inside, the knowledge that not everything in the station could be counted, recorded, or explained. Some things were never logged. Some things waited. Always. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. Even after my shift ended. Even after I left the station and drove home, I couldn't shake it. The locked door of cell 3. The cold metal. The emptiness that wasn't empty. Every shadow in the station seemed heavier now. Like the walls themselves remembered something I could barely understand. When I returned next night, the building was quiet in a way that pressed against your chest. The fluorescent lights flickered, weak in the corners, casting shadows that shifted subtly as if they were breathing. I tried to tell myself it was just fatigue, that I'd imagined the lock clicking, the weight behind the bars, the sense of eyes watching. But deep down I knew better. I stood outside the cell, notebook in hand, writing down every detail I could remember. The lock, solid. The door, locked, even though the log said it shouldn't be. The air, thick, and the sound, a low voice. It started faintly, almost drowned in the hum of the lights. Keller? I froze, every muscle in my body rigid. My pen hovered over the paper. Not again. Not like last night. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my pulse. Who's there? I asked softly, almost pleading. The voice came again. Softer this time, almost a whisper carried from the darkness inside the cell. Help me? I swallowed. My fingers tightened around the pen. I wanted to leave. I wanted to run down the hallway. Call dispatch. Call anyone. But I couldn't. Not yet, because I knew the voice. Familiar. Desperate. Impossible. I pressed my ear closer to the bars. The metal was cold, bitter against my skin, and the darkness behind it felt alive. The whispering continued, more voices joining now. Faint, overlapping, indecipherable. Don't stay, listen. I stepped back, my notebook shaking in my hands. My head spun. My rational mind searched for explanation. Pipes, drafts, echoes from the ventilation. But nothing fit. These weren't random sounds bouncing through the station. These were voices. Distinct. Sentient. Speaking to me. Keller? One voice, clear, cutting through the others. Calling my name. My heart raced. My throat went dry. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But my feet refused to move. My body trembled as I stared at the locked door, at the shadows pooling in the corners of the cell. Help! The voices grew more insistent, overlapping now, as if pressed close to my ears from every direction. I clutched the notebook against my chest, backing toward the hallway, away from the cell. But the sound followed me, not through air, but through some deeper sense, inside my skull, pressing against my thoughts. I sat down in the nearby chair, trying to write, trying to anchor myself. Voices from an empty cell. I whispered aloud, but the voices didn't stop. They seemed to circle me, drifting through the room. Don't leave? I closed my eyes, tried to breathe, tried to convince myself it was fatigue, paranoia, the stress of long nights, the stories I'd heard from other deputies over the years. But it wasn't that. Not this. The whispers sharpened. Here, Keller, help, don't. I opened my eyes slowly. The cell was empty, silent in the fluorescent light. Nothing stirred. No shadows moved. No figure appeared. Just the door, the cold bars, the empty interior. And yet, the voices persisted, soft, low, urgent, echoing from somewhere I cannot locate, not through the air, not through the speakers, but inside me, pressing, patient, unrelenting. I whispered back, voice shaking, "I'm here. I'll help. I don't know how. You must." The sound was faint, distant, yet impossibly close. I could feel it in my chest, my spine, the nape of my neck. The voices wrapped around me, threading into my thoughts, threading through my memory of last night, of the impossible lock, the cold metal, the emptiness that wasn't empty. I tried to stand, tried to leave the booking area, but my legs shook, my body refused to obey. The whispers pressed, circling, tightening, urging, waiting. "Stay, listen, don't turn away." I took a step back, bumping the chair. It scraped against the floor, loud in the heavy silence. The voices recoiled for a moment, as if disturbed, then returned. "Keller, don't leave, he's waiting." I forced myself to look at the door again. The cell, the darkness inside. Nothing had changed. Nothing moved. But the feeling, that weight, that presence was palpable. Alive, patient, watching, waiting. I sank into the chair, notebook open, writing furiously. The words spilled from me, my hand shaking, trying to capture everything. The voices, the cold, the impossible lock, the emptiness. But even as I wrote, I knew it was enough. I could record the details, log the events, try to explain them. But the presence, the whispering, the low, urgent voices, they would not be contained. They would not be explained. "Help!" One voice rose above the others, distinct, pleading, familiar. I knew it, could feel it, and I knew, in a way that made my blood run cold, that it had been there all along. Waiting, speaking, patient. Hours passed. The voices never stopped. I never slept. I never left the chair. I sat listening, recording, feeling the presence press against me, threading through my thoughts, through my memory, through my very being. When the sun finally rose, the station seemed ordinary again. Fluorescent lights steady, empty hallways. The cold bars of the cell, just metal and shadow. No voices, no whispers. But I knew, I always knew, that night the voices had spoken. They had called my name. They had waited for me. And they were still there, patient, patient in the dark, behind the locked door that was never empty, in the shadows that were never still. And I knew, even in the bright light of day, that they would speak again. I had tried to put behind me, tried to convince myself that the whispers from cell 3 were a trick of my mind, a mix of exhaustion and imagination after so many late-night shifts. But tonight, as I walked back into the station, I felt that same weight pressing in, the way the air always seemed heavier near that locked door. My boots echoed softly on the floor, a hollow sound in the otherwise still station. I could feel it watching, waiting. The radio on my belt crackled once, faintly like static, and then a voice cut through. My voice. No, not mine, not really, but a sound that matched my inflections perfectly. "Keller?" I froze. My pulse jumped and my stomach tightened. I hadn't spoken into the radio. My hand hovered over it anyway. "Who's there?" I whispered. The voice returned, slow, deliberate, almost amused in a way that made my skin crawl. "I know you." I swallowed hard. "Who is this?" "I know your house." The words hit me like ice. I glanced around the empty station. The fluorescent lights flickered above, but nothing else moved. Nothing made a sound. And yet, the voice knew. It wasn't random. It was inside my head now, pressing against me, turning every memory inside out. The place where you hid from your father. My stomach dropped. My fists clenched at my sides. My chest felt tight. The voice wasn't just describing a house. It was describing my house, my childhood home, the room at the back where I used to hide under the stairs when he got angry, the closet where I kept a baseball bat tucked in the corner, just in case. I tried to breathe, tried to convince myself I was imagining it. How do you know that? I've always known. I staggered back a step, bumping against the wall. My mind raced. No one could know that, not from the station, not from any files, any records, any part of my life documented in paperwork. The house, that room, those moments, they were mine. Private, personal, hidden, and yet the voice described them perfectly. Every detail. The window you broke when you were 12, the tree in the yard, the crack in the ceiling where the water leaks. I shivered. I remembered it all. The broken window, the late summer storm, my father's furious shouting, my mother silent in the kitchen, just standing there. The water stains spreading like veins across the ceiling in the back room. How could it know? No one could. You remember the smell of the old carpet, the way your mother's perfume lingered. I cover my face with my hands. Try to stop the panic from overwhelming me. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to tell myself it was impossible. But my mind couldn't escape. The memories were crawling through my chest like fire ants, burning and unrelenting. I know every sound of that house. Every step you took when you thought you were alone. Every tear you cried in the dark. I sank to the floor, pressing my back against the wall. The fluorescent lights flickered above, casting long, thin shadows across the station. My ears rang, my thoughts raced, and the voice continued, patient, insistent, intimate in a way that felt invasive and wrong. You thought no one would remember, no one would care. But I do. I shook my head, trying to clear the thoughts, trying to pull myself back into reality. But the voice was everywhere now. Not from the radio, not from the walls, not from the station. It was inside me, in my head, in my chest, crawling along my nerves. It knew me, not just my history, not just my shifts and paperwork, but me, the little boy I used to be, scared in that old house, hiding from the shadows, from my father, from my own fears. And I remember when you opened the door to the attic for the first time, how you whispered to yourself, hoping no one heard. I trembled. The attic, I hadn't thought of that in years. The boxes stacked to the ceiling, the smell of mothballs and dust, how the floorboards creaked beneath my weight, how I had felt both terrified and exhilarated to explore, to uncover what was hidden, how it had felt like a secret no one could ever know. I was there. The words were soft now, almost gentle, and yet every syllable pressed into me made my heart pound. My vision blurred. My knees gave way. I sank further to the floor, pressed my hands against my ears, trying to block the sound. But the voice didn't stop. I know your father's anger, your mother's silence, the way you learned to move quietly, to hide, to survive. I gasped for breath. The memories weren't just in my head. They were alive, painted fresh in every nerve ending. The fear, the shame, the quiet victories, the tears no one ever saw. And this voice, this presence, was cataloging them, breathing them back to me, naming them, claiming them. And I know the day you finally left, how you looked back at the house one last time, wondering if it remembered you. I clenched my fists, biting my lip until it bled. Yes, I remembered. I remembered standing on the porch, suitcase in hand, staring at the peeling paint, the cracked steps, the yard overgrown with weeds. I remember the smell of dust and smoke and old wood, and I remembered thinking, no one will ever come back for me. No one will ever remember this house. Or me. It remembers, and so do I. My chest heaved. I felt trapped. Not by walls, not by metal, not by shadows, but by memory itself. By someone or something that had taken those memories and used them like weapons. The voice was patient, insistent, intimate. It knew my fear. It knew my pain. It knew the child I had been, the man I had become. And it used both to anchor me, to keep me here, in this station, in this moment. I tried to speak. Why are you doing this? Silence. Then the whisper returned, a low, deliberate echo that made my teeth chatter. To remind you, to remember, to never forget. I sank against the wall, tears blurring my vision. The fluorescent lights flickered. The station was still, and yet the air itself felt alive, watching, pressing, knowing. The voice had left my head, then returned, circling, whispering, detailing every corner of my childhood home, every secret, every fear, every hidden wound I had thought buried. I know your face, Keller. I've always known your face. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe properly. Every memory, every corner of that house, Every sound, every smell, every shadow. It was all alive in my mind now, and whatever this presence was, it had claimed them. It had claimed me. I realized then, with a hollow ache, that it didn't need to hurt me physically. It didn't need to leave marks. It only needed to know, to remember, to reach through the years and touch the boy I once was, the man I had become, and make me feel small, fragile, exposed. I see you, Keller. Always. In the house. In the shadows. In the quiet. I know you, and I understood with a bone-deep certainty that the voice wasn't going away. It had always been here, patient, waiting, watching, knowing, and now it knew everything. I stayed there on the floor, trembling, heart pounding, hands pressed to my ears, while the shadows in the station stretched long and impossible, and the voice whispered to the darkness, painting every memory, every fear, every corner of my childhood home with a clarity I had never imagined. It knew my face, and I knew in that moment that it would never forget it. I had been driving for hours, the long night stretching out in front of me like a black ribbon. The highway was empty, more empty than usual for a rural route, with the fog rolling in thick from the fields on either side, swallowing the trees and the fence posts until everything disappeared into gray. The only sounds of the tires against the asphalt and the low hum of the engine. I slowed as I rounded a bend and saw them. Orange traffic cones set up across the lane, a roadblock, just sitting there, perfectly placed, as if someone had stopped the world and left them behind. My heart kicked. No lights, no signs, no officers assigned, just cones and fog, standing stiff and bright against the darkness. I slowed even more, the car shivering under my hands as I came to a near stop. My eyes darted along the sides of the road. Nothing, just fog, just darkness. I radioed and out of habit, though I didn't expect an answer. Dispatch, this is Keller. I'm at, mile marker 23. There's a roadblock up. No units assigned. Static. Then the crackle of the familiar voice. Copy, Keller. No reports of road work there. Check again. I looked at the cones again. They were perfectly spaced, almost deliberate. My chest tightened. Something about them felt wrong. Not just out of place, but deliberate, purposeful. The fog swirled around them, thick and wet, and I thought I could see shadows moving behind it. But when I blinked, there was nothing. I stepped out of the car, the chill biting through my jacket, hands trembling slightly as I moved toward the roadblock. Each cone felt heavier than it should, the asphalt cold beneath my boots, the fog curling around my legs like it had weight. I ran my hand over the first cone. Plastic, solid, normal, yet the hairs on my neck stood on end. Hello, I said, voice small, swallowed immediately by the fog. Anyone out here? No reply, just the soft rustle of the fog rolling over the road. The cones glowed faintly in my headlights, orange and unreal, as if they didn't belong in this world at all. I circled them, each one exactly the same distance apart. Nothing else. No tire tracks leading up. No footprints. Just the road, the fog, the cones. I took out my radio again. Dispatch. I don't see anyone. No vehicles, no equipment, nothing. Just the cones. Copy, came the reply. No records of roadblocks in that area. Can you mark it and leave? I swallowed hard. I wanted to comply. I wanted to turn around, leave the fog, leave the cones, leave whatever was here behind. But I couldn't. Not yet. I had to know. I had to see. I stepped back toward the first cone. My boot sank slightly into the wet road shoulder. The fog wrapped tighter around me, cold and damp. And then I heard it, a whisper, just a faint sibilant sound, barely audible over the wind and the hum of the engine behind me. Keller? I froze. My eyes scanned the fog. Nothing, just empty gray, thick and unyielding. My pulse hammered in my ears. Who's there? Nothing. Only the faint rustle of air against the cones. But the feeling, the wave of tension, pressed down on me. It was as if someone had been waiting here all along, watching, patient. I moved to the second cone, ran my hand over it. Solid plastic. Nothing. But then I noticed a pattern. Not random. A straight line leading from the fog, across the lane, toward the dark stretch of the highway ahead. It didn't make sense. Whoever had placed these cones had no reason to stop traffic here. There were no intersections, no hazards, just the empty road, stretching on. Keller? The whisper came again, closer now, almost inside my skull. I stumbled back, heart pounding. Who was this? My voice cracked against the fog. No answer, but the fog thickened. The cones seemed to shift slightly, or maybe my eyes were playing tricks. Each step I took forward felt slower, heavier, as if the air itself resisted me. And then I realized I hadn't seen the source. No shadow, no figure, no movement beyond the fog, just the cones. And whatever it called my name, I stepped around the cones, circling them, trying to see through the gray, trying to find a logical explanation. Animals? Prank? Road crew? Nothing fit. The night was too still. The fog too dense. The cones too deliberate. Hello? I whispered, softer now, almost hoping to hear a rational reply. My breath caught, visible in the headlights, curling like smoke into fog. Keller? Closer. Insistent. Patient. Familiar. My skin prickled. My hair stood on end. My hands shook. The highway around me, the empty fields, the thick fog, they all seemed to fold in, compressing space, time, reality itself. I backed toward the car, mind racing, stomach tight. I wanted to run, but I couldn't leave. Not yet. My instinct screamed at me to flee. Yet the presence, the voice, whatever it was, held me in place, anchored me with that quiet insistence, with the familiarity of something I couldn't name, but somehow recognized. I reached the car door. Hands trembling, I leaned inside to grab my flashlight. When I looked back, the cones had shifted? No, not moved. The alignment was exact, almost perfect, too perfect. My pulse quickened. Something about them was deliberate, methodical, patient, waiting. Keller? The whisper, more than a sound, more than a voice, now pressed against my mind. It wasn't coming from the cones. Not exactly. Not from the fog. It was inside me. Knowledge, awareness, a weight that threaded through my nerves, made my thoughts stutter, my breath come in sharp gasps. I swung the flashlight through the fog. Its beam cut through the gray, illuminating nothing but road and cones and swirling mist. Yet I felt it, someone or something, just beyond the light, patient, watching, knowing. I swallowed, voice shaking. I don't understand. What is this? No answer. Only the soft shifting of fog, the hum of the tires on asphalt and the silent, unyielding orange cones. But I knew I wasn't alone. I wasn't imagining it. Something had been here before me. Something that knew my path, knew the road, knew me. And as I finally sat behind the wheel, gripping the steering wheel like a lifeline, I realized the cones weren't just a roadblock. They were a warning, a mark, a sign that something waited in the fog. Patient, deliberate, and aware, waiting for me. I didn't drive that night. I couldn't move past it. Not until the fog lifted. Not until the cones vanished. And even then, in the back of my mind, I knew they were still out there, waiting, patient, watching, and whisper my name into the dark. I sat in the patrol car, fog pressing against the windshield like wet cotton, and stared at the row of cones that still blocked the road. My hands were tight on the wheel, knuckles white, and the headlights barely cut through the gray swirl ahead. I'd been here for nearly 20 minutes, trying to rationalize, trying to tell myself it was a prank, a glitch, something explainable, but I knew better. Something about this roadblock wasn't normal, and whatever it was, it wasn't finished with me yet. I keyed the radio. Dispatch, Unit Keller. Still at the roadblock. I need confirmation. Anyone assigned here? Negative, Keller. No unit scheduled. Area's clear. Must be a mistake. The voice came back, calm, clip, almost annoyingly mundane. I swallowed hard, heart thumping. Dispatch. The cones, they weren't there before. I drove this road an hour ago. There's no work, no vehicles, nothing. Just these cones. There was a pause, static crackling over the radio. Copy, Keller. No reports. Proceed with caution. Over. I exhaled shakily and glanced at the cones again. Bright orange, perfectly lined. each one spaced exactly the same. And the fog, the way it wrapped around them, shifting, curling, hiding what lay beyond. I want to call it a prank, but the careful placement, the almost deliberate alignment, and the way the air itself felt wrong told me this wasn't random. Not at all. I stepped out of the car, boots crunching on damp gravel. The chill soaked through my jacket, but I hardly noticed. I walked to the first cone and ran a hand along its plastic. Solid, normal. Nothing moved, nothing breathed, nothing but the presence, the weight pressing just beyond the fog, making my skin crawl and my stomach tighten like a fist. I radioed again, though I didn't expect an answer this time. Dispatch, are you reading me? Anyone there? We're here, Keller. Repeat, no units are out there. Is everything okay? No. I snapped, voice cracking, the fog swallowing immediately. There's something out here. The cones, they're here. They weren't here before. It feels wrong. It feels alive. There was only static for a moment. Then the voice, calm, steady, bureaucratic. Unit Keller, you are reading signs where there are none. Check the coordinates and move on. I shook my head. Move on? Move on from what? The cones weren't signs. They were something else. Something deliberate. Waiting. Watching. The fog around me thickened, damp and clinging. I could see my breath curl in the dim beam of the headlights. But beyond that, nothing. And yet, I felt it. The first call came over my radio without warning. A voice, soft, almost pleading, crackling with static. Help, Keller. I froze. The hair on my arms rose, my stomach tightened, and the blood drained from my face. Who is this? I whispered, though the sound was loss of fog immediately. Here, the voice was faint, distant, yet somehow inside my skull at the same time. Can't leave, won't. I stumbled back, gripping the hood of the patrol car, trying to keep my balance, trying to make sense. My mind raced. Was it another officer? Someone messing with the radio? But the static carried a weight I couldn't explain. It was patient, precise, like it had been waiting for me. Keller? The whisper came again. My heart jumped into my throat. That name, it wasn't just identification. It was familiarity, intimacy, as though it had been uttered countless times before. And then the fog shifted, curling closer around me, wrapping me in cold, damp fingers that weren't there, and the cones seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. I radioed again, trying to ground myself. Dispatch, Keller again. Calls are coming from here, from this spot. We've checked the system. No units or incidents registered in that area. Are you sure you're not mishearing? No. I snapped. My voice trembled, echoing into the emptiness. It's coming from here. Every time I move, the calls, whatever this is, it follows. Silence, just static crackling back at me. And then the calls started, one after another, faint whispers crackling to the radio. Don't leave, Keller, help. I staggered back, hand pressing my radio, stomach twisting. The voice or voices were insistent, familiar, and deliberate, not random, not accidental. Someone or something was broadcasting from the spot, but no unit was assigned. No one was here, and yet it kept calling me. I glanced around the fog, the stretch of empty road, the fields swallowed in gray. Nothing moved, nothing breathed, and yet the air felt alive, thick with anticipation, with a presence that lingered just beyond vision. I tried to convince myself I was tired, hallucinating after long hours, but every instinct in me screamed against that explanation. Keller? The voice sounded closer now, pressing at the edges of my mind, threading through my nerves, making every hair on my body stand on end. My stomach lurched. I wanted to run, but my legs felt heavy, unresponsive, anchored to the spot. The cones, bright and deliberate, seemed almost to pulse with the rhythm of my heartbeat. I gripped the car door tightly, knuckles white, and shined the flashlight through the fog. The beam cut across the cones, illuminating them one by one. They hadn't moved, but I felt them move, shifting subtly, impossibly, aligning themselves with the rhythm of the calls, or maybe the rhythm of my own pulse. Here, the voice again, closer, urgent, patient. It knew I would hear it, knew I couldn't leave, knew the fear that now wrapped around me like a second skin, and I realized with cold clarity that it wasn't just coming from the radio. It was everywhere, inside me, threaded through the fog, pressing from the cones themselves, from the wet asphalt, from the dark. I fell to my knees, fumbling with the radio, trying to trace the source, to find a logical explanation, but there was none. No units had been sent. Dispatch denied sending anyone. Yet the calls continued, patient, insistent, impossible. They weren't random. They weren't mistakes. They were directed. And they knew me. Don't leave, stay, Keller. I covered my ears, squeezed my eyes shut, tried to drown out. But the words echoed inside me, inside my skull, inside my chest. Every memory, every thought I tried to push away, now pressed forward. The presence wasn't just outside. It was inside, anchoring me, forcing me to see, forcing me to remember, forcing me to listen. I gasped, leaning back against the car, shivering, breath shallow. My flashlight slipped from my fingers. The cones were just cones, I told myself. Orange, plastic, nothing more. Yet the whispers persisted, patient, insistent, echoing from nowhere and everywhere at once. Keller? The word rolled over me, a weight pressing against my spine, curling around my ribs, settling in my chest. I realized, finally, with a hollow certainty, that the calls wouldn't stop, no matter what I did, no matter how far I drove, no matter what the fog or the cones or the empty road told me. This spot was alive to them, and they were alive to me. I stayed kneeling there for what felt like hours, the fog swirling thick around the headlights, the cones unmoving yet impossibly present, and the calls crackling insistently through the radio. Dispatch denied sending anyone. Records showed nothing. But I knew the truth. Somewhere in that fog, in that stillness, in that empty rural highway with cones set like a trap or a warning, something waited. Patient, observing, persistent, and it had my name. Keller? I didn't move. I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I understood what it wanted. Not until I could stop hearing those impossible calls coming from a place that should not exist. And even then I knew in the pit of my stomach that this was only the beginning. I was alone in the office at night, the hum of the fluorescent lights filling the empty station like white noise. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, and the radio crackled faintly in the background, the only sound other than the occasional car passing the lot outside, most nights. The quiet was easy to bear, almost comforting in its predictability. But tonight, it was different. Tonight, the silence felt like something waiting, watching. The phone rang once, sharp and insistent, cutting through the stillness. I picked it up out of habit. Sheriff Keller, I said, expecting the usual. A report, a complaint, someone lost or confused. Silence. Then slow, deliberate breathing. Deep inhalation. Slow exhalation. Almost measured, almost rhythmic. Not panic, not hurried. Just breathing. The kind of breathing that made you feel was watching you, even though it wasn't a person on the other end. Hello. I tried again, voice steadier than I felt. Nothing, only the slow rise and fall, the sound of lungs filling and emptying. I swallowed, the office suddenly feeling colder. Who's there? Still nothing, just a breath. My mind tried to rationalize. A prank? A wrong number? A malfunction in the system? But no one laughs this quietly. No one keeps this steady, this intimate. It wasn't just sound. It was presence. I gripped the phone tighter, knuckles whitening. The breathing didn't change, didn't falter, didn't respond to my words. And that was the worst part. It seemed aware, patient, waiting for me to say something, to react, to show fear. And I felt it deep in my chest, pressing in, heavy, cold. I set the phone slightly away from my ear, just enough to hear my own heartbeat over it. Then, slowly, cautiously, I spoke again. If this is some kind of joke, it's not funny. The breathing didn't stop, didn't even change rhythm, just continued, like it was laughing without sound, like it was enjoying this little game in the darkness. I tried tracing the call on the system, but there was nothing. No number, no trace. Just a line open to somewhere, someplace. And it was here now, right here, in the quiet of the station, in my office, pressing into me through the receiver. I leaned back in my chair, trying to breathe normally, try to convince myself I wasn't losing it. I told myself stories. Someone with a voice modulator. Someone experimenting. Someone trying to scare the old sheriff for fun. But even as I told myself that, a chill ran down my spine. The breathing wasn't mechanical. It wasn't fake. It was alive. It was patient. It was deliberate. And I felt watched in a way that went beyond sound, beyond the phone, beyond logic. Minutes passed. I counted them, trying to keep time, trying to ground myself. The breathing didn't waver. My hand shook slightly on the phone, and I realized my fingers had been gripping it too tightly. Nails pressing into plastic. The warmth I expected from human touch was gone, replaced by a creeping, cold certainty that whoever, or whatever, was on the line knew me, knew where I was, knew I was alone. Hello? I whispered, almost afraid my own voice would startle whatever was there. And then something changed. A slight shift in the rhythm. A pause between breaths. Too deliberate to be natural. My pulse jumped. I knew the pause was intended, as if it were listening to me as closely as I was listening to it. I set the phone down for a second, just to breathe, and leaned forward, eyes scanning the empty office. The flickering fluorescent lights cast long shadows across the walls, and I felt them stretch, reaching toward me in the corners of my vision. The breathing didn't stop when I set the phone down. Somehow, it carried through the room, through the silence, through the hum of the lights. I picked the receiver back up, voice trembling slightly. What do you want? Nothing. Just the breathing. Slow, patient, insistent, pressing. I realized then that it wasn't asking for anything. It didn't need anything from me. It was a point. The sound itself, the presence, the patience, everything about it, was designed to unnerve, to anchor me in the knowledge that I was not alone, that I was being watched, listened to, known. The thought made my stomach knot. My fingers shook. I gripped the phone tighter, feeling the plastic press into my skin. I told myself to hang up. I wanted to hang up. But a part of me, a small, foolish, curious part, couldn't. I needed to know what came next. Needed to see if it would speak, to respond, to reveal itself. It didn't, not in words. Just a slow, deliberate inhalation and exhalation, and a weight pressing into my chest, making every thought feel louder, sharper, more exposed. I tried to focus on my own breathing, matching it, pacing it, trying to normalize the panic rising inside me. But the breath on the line was different. Heavier, older, sharper, like it belonged to someone or something that had all the time in the world and was willing to wait as long as needed. Why are you doing this? I whispered finally, voice hoarse. The pause stretched longer than before, then a single, shallow exhale, almost a sigh, and the sound carried a subtle rhythm that made my hair stand on end. It didn't answer me. It didn't explain. It didn't need to. Its presence was the answer. Minutes, or maybe hours, passed. The lights flickered again, and I felt the room press closer around me. Shadows deepened. Corners stretched impossibly. The breathing didn't waver. It simply continued, patient, deliberate, intimate. And then I realized it had learned my rhythms, my pauses, my reactions. It was listening, cataloging, waiting for me to slip, for me to give something away. I shifted in my chair, trying to stay calm, trying to convince myself I was still in control. But I wasn't. I knew it, and the realization was like cold water in my chest. I was a participant in something I didn't understand, and the only rules were the ones set by the slow, deliberate, living sound on the line. I tried to remember other calls, other nights, times I'd felt the station quiet, the night heavy, but nothing matched this. Nothing prepared me for this feeling. The weight of attention, the patience, the intimacy. It wasn't a human prank, not a machine malfunction. It was aware, and it knew me. Please? I muttered, almost too softly for the phone to pick up. Please, show yourself. Say something. Only the breathing. Deep, slow, patient, echoing in my skull, pressing against my chest, pressing into my memory, pressing into me. I realized then with a sinking certainty that it would not end. Not here, not tonight, not ever. The sound had claimed the station, claimed the night, claimed me. It was patient, deliberate, alive. And as I sat there, gripping the receiver, chest tight, the room pressing closer, shadows stretching long and impossible across the walls, I knew the calls would continue. The breathing would continue. Patient, deliberate, intimate. Waiting for the next shift. Waiting for me. Watching. Always. I sat frozen in my office chair. The receiver still pressed in my ear, heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted to escape. I had traced the call, thought I had tracked the source, and then the system spit back something impossible. My own address. My house. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my shaking hands. Dispatch. I croaked, voice barely louder than a whisper. The call traces to my house. Static crackled in reply. Unit Keller, please confirm. I gritted my teeth, trying to sound normal, professional, but the tremor in my voice betrayed me. Confirmed. The line is coming from here, from me. There was a long pause on the other end. Too long. And it made my skin crawl, made the hair on my neck stand stiff. I imagined the room at home, the hallway dark, the living room quiet, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Nothing unusual. Nothing yet. I told myself it had to be a glitch, a technical error. Maybe someone had used a line to prank me. Maybe some wiring crossed in the system. Rational explanations. I wanted them, needed them, but the dread in my stomach told me I already knew the truth. This wasn't a glitch. Not really. Not when the slow, deliberate breathing I'd heard earlier returned, heavier, closer, pressing into my skull as if it had walked through the wires, through the line, through the walls of my own home. I closed my eyes, trying to picture my house. The dark hallway, the worn carpet, the living room couch where I dozed off countless nights. And then the sound hit me again, slow, measured, patient, impossible, coming from somewhere inside that house, from my home, my sanctuary. The rational part of me shouted that it was impossible. Phones don't carry sounds like this without someone on the other end. And yet there was the same inhalation and exhalation, deliberate, intimate, invasive. It knew me, my house, the air inside it, maybe even the rhythm of my life. I ran my hand over my face, tugging at my collar, trying to breathe, trying to stay calm. But the knowledge pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. It could call from my house, then it could be there, and if it was there, then I was no longer safe. I tried to remember if I'd locked the doors, the windows, checked the alarms. My memory betrayed me in small, terrifying ways. I could picture the front door, the back door, the locks, but the sound, the slow, deliberate breath, made those precautions meaningless. It wasn't bound by walls. Not truly, not like a human. Keller. The voice finally whispered, low, careful, as though savoring the terror it produced. And I knew it was speaking to me from my own house, from somewhere beyond the walls, behind the doors, in the shadows I thought were mine. I gripped the desk, nails biting into the wood, trying to ground myself. I tried the radio. Dispatch! I need someone, anyone, to check my house. Unit Keller, urgent. Please. Copy, Keller. Units en route, came the standard reply, flat, routine. But their words felt hollow, powerless. They were hours away, and whatever was had already crossed the threshold into my home, already made its presence known. I tried to visualize the layout of the house, to imagine where the sound might come from. Kitchen, living room, bedroom. The breathing was everywhere and nowhere at once. It wasn't echoing. It wasn't localized. It pressed against my mind, against my chest, threading into my thoughts, threading into the way I remembered every corner of my home. I remember the first time I moved into that house, the hollow sound of my boots on the stairs, the way the walls had seemed to breathe with life as I unpacked. And now they seemed to hold a memory they weren't meant to, a presence, patient and deliberate, threading itself through the foundation, through the very wood, through the plaster, through the floorboards. I realized with a cold, sinking certainty that it wasn't just in the house. It knew the house. It had mapped it, watched it, waited, and I was the next part. I reached for the light switch, but my fingers froze halfway. The shadows seemed thicker than normal, pressed closer against the corners, curling with intent. I imagined the hallway, the rooms beyond, empty, silent, yet the sound persisted, slow, deliberate, patient, breathing, waiting. I wanted to hang up the phone, to shut it all down, to cut the connection, but I couldn't. Some part of me, small and foolish, needed to hear it, needed to know. It was a terrible curiosity, and I hated myself for it. Keller, the whisper came again, familiar, intimate, threaded with some unnatural patience that made my chest tighten. It wasn't a human voice, not truly. It was older than me, or perhaps younger in ways that twisted the memory of childhood and home together. It belonged to the house now, to the walls, to the shadows. I pressed my face against the receiver, trembling, listening to the inhale, the exhale, each one like a pulse pressing into my bones. And then I understood it wasn't going to stop. Not tonight. Not ever. Not until I was in the house. Until it had walked every corner, seen every shadow, claimed every inch I thought was mine. I imagined my bedroom, the closet, the dresser, the bed. Somewhere in that room, it waited, patient, deliberate, knowing that I would feel it there long before I saw it, long before I could rationalize it. It would press against the air, against my skin, threading through the walls, through the floor, through my mind. I tried to rationalize again. Maybe it was a stalker. Maybe someone had found a way to manipulate the phone lines. Maybe it was a hallucination, a stress-induced phantom from months of long nights in isolation. But the knowledge that the call came from my address, the slow, deliberate inhale and exhale threading through every memory of home, told me the truth. I wasn't alone. I pressed my forehead to the desk, trying to steady my shaking body, trying to ground myself. But the sound pressed against me, insistent, patient. It wasn't asking for anything. It didn't need anything. Its existence was the point. Its presence, my knowledge of it, my terror. Keller? The word rolled over me, inside me, threading into my memory, threading into my fear, threading into my home. I imagined it pacing through the rooms, through the hallway, through the darkness behind doors I had locked. Its patience was absolute, its presence impossible to avoid. I realized then that no one could save me tonight. Dispatch could send units, could track the call, could assure themselves it was a technical glitch, but they couldn't step into my house. Not yet. And the sound. Oh, the sound was already inside, already claiming corners, already threading through the walls, already waiting. I gripped the phone tighter, sweat cold on my skin, chest tightening, heart hammering. And I knew, in the pit of my stomach, that it wouldn't stop. It wouldn't leave. It would remain patient, deliberate, intimate, breathing, waiting, watching. And I, the sheriff, protector of this town, the one sworn to face danger and confrontation, realized I had never felt more helpless in my life. My own home, my sanctuary, was no longer mine. It belonged to the sound, to the presence, to the patient, deliberate breathing that would follow me wherever I went, threading itself into the foundation of my life, until it knew everything. Keller? The call ended, just like that. But the breath didn't leave. Not really. Not ever. It was in my mind, in my chest, in the walls of my home, waiting, patient, deliberate, and I knew, with a terror I could not shake, that it had only just begun.